That's all from this edition of Assignment and me, Lucy Proctor. The producer was Mike Gallagher.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello there, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're back live downtown with you on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Or I should say I'm back. The team's been here, and I just told Abby, don't worry, I didn't embarrass the radio fam. Lots of fun performing at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival. My first time doing stand-up. I had so much fun, and so I was off yesterday. But thanks to Faith Fundell who filled in. And speaking of funny, I heard Steve Patterson was here, and I love that winning pun about Nickelback. Thanks for joining us. The morning show's on till 8:37 a.m. Let's say good morning to the team. Corey Funk, good morning. Corey directs the show, and we'll be covering the commute on air. Abby Adiemi, good morning. Abby is our technical producer on the program, our senior tech, and we'll be on the air covering the weather. And good morning to Mr. Brad Lillies, who is our longtime CBC producer here and produces our VMix and our YouTube stream in the morning. Maybe you're watching there. All right, let's say good morning also to Heather Wells. She is in to talk about the news headlines today. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a man has pleaded guilty to killing 3 people in just over 6 months in Winnipeg's inner city. Maxim Dale Garneau was charged in the deaths of the 3 men between September 2023 and March of 2024. His sentencing on 3 counts of second-degree murder now is scheduled for next month. And all wrapped up.
DeMello, quick shot, and they score!
Second period on Sportsnet, the Winnipeg Jets get back to their winning ways in front of a packed and loud whiteout. The Jets beat the Blues 5-3. Wasn't all celebrating, though. Mark Scheifele had to leave the game after the first period after taking several big hits. Winnipeg leads the series 3-2 now. Game 6 goes tomorrow night in St. Louis. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we've got rain possible in Winnipeg today. We've got flurries possible up in Thompson, and then in Brandon you'll have sunshine. So a full picture of the weather with Abby after 6. Coming up, speaking of the weather, a spring cleanup's taking over parts of downtown Winnipeg today. We'll tell you about that. Also in the first hour of the show, Love in Translation, we're going to speak to one of the authors of a new study that looks at the joys and the challenges of intercultural relationships. So stay tuned for that. And then we'll hear more about building bridges with the premiers now that Prime Minister Mark Carney will seek to strengthen his relationships across this country. So stay tuned. It's all still ahead on Information Radio. But first, World Report.
On Cue with Tom Power.
Do you find it hard to get motivated, to get things done? Do you wish you could be a little more creative? The lead singer of the great Canadian band Arkells, Max Kerman, has a new book out. It's called Try Hard, all about how he approaches his work. And he thinks it might help you out.
I think to be consumed by something that you love is such a gift.
That's coming up on Cue, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. It is a case that could make history, and it is led by 7 young Canadians. Today, the Supreme Court of Canada will decide whether to hear their arguments aimed at fighting climate change and the responsibility governments have to future generations. My World Report co-host, John Northcott, is here in studio. So, John, tell us how we got here.
Marcia, we all know about the effects of climate change. Higher temperatures, floods, fires, poor air quality. Now, these young people, with 17-year-old Sophia Mather lending her name to the case, argue that the actions of the Ontario government effectively violate their charter rights because of the effects climate change will have on their health. In other words, as the next generation, they look into the effects climate change will have on their lives and argue not only is it unhealthy, but discriminatory. Not to get too far into the legal weeds on this one, but the teens argue that under the Charter Sections 7 and 15, the Doug Ford government's Cap and Trade Cancellation Act of 2019 violates their right to life, liberty, and security of person, as well as discrimination based on age. This case is ping-ponged back and forth in Ontario's lower courts, with the Ford government choosing to take the case to the Supreme Court for a ruling. If the court even agrees to hear the case, it will be a big deal. It would be the first case in Canada to rule on whether a government is obliged to meet higher emissions targets.
So, John, tell us more about these young people.
Marcia, the case bears the name of 17-year-old Sophia Mather. Despite her young age, she's been involved in the climate fight for years now, taking her fight to Ottawa and Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., along with international climate activist Greta Thunberg. Here's Mather speaking on social media.
I believe that youth deserve a say in issues like climate change, social justice, or things that affect us on the daily. I also believe that youth deserve a say in our government's policies and what they do with our future.
We've just come through an election where the issue of climate change was notably largely absent. If the court decides today to deal with this case, it might force governments to put their responsibilities for the planet's future back on the agenda.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Marcy.
My World Report co-host, John Northcott. Prime Minister Mark Carney has spoken on the phone with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. They discussed ways to get closer to a ceasefire in Ukraine. Zelensky says that includes applying more sanctions to Russia's banking and energy sectors. But it is Ukraine's relationship with the United States that is under the microscope today.
Both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says both countries signed a rare minerals deal last night, but we are still waiting for all the details to be made public. President Donald Trump has long said support for Ukraine against the Russian invasion is draining U.S. resources. But he told a town hall yesterday this minerals deal could give the U.S. a lot more. Trump also says he wants to secure a lasting peace agreement to stop the deaths in this war. There was another wave of strikes overnight. Drones targeted the Black Sea port city of Odessa as well as Kharkiv. Ukraine's Air Force says Russia launched more than 170 drones and 5 ballistic missiles overnight. And Ukrainian drones also targeted Russian-occupied parts of Kherson. Russian officials say at least 7 people were killed. From tariffs to deportations, former U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris did not hold back attacking her former campaign rival, now President Donald Trump. She delivered a bold speech in San Francisco last night, coinciding with Trump's first 100 days in office. Steve Futterman has more.
Kamala Harris accused the Trump administration of trying to scare the American people.
We all know President Trump and his administration are counting on the notion that fear can be contagious.
She called it part of a well-conceived agenda.
An agenda to shrink government and then privatize its services, all while giving tax breaks to the wealthiest among us.
In one of her sharpest attacks, Harris said Trump is abandoning American ideal.
It is not okay to detain and disappear American citizens or anyone without due process.
She called the Trump tariffs the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern American history and said it could lead to a recession.
The president's reckless tariffs hurt workers and families, devastate the retirement accounts that people spent a lifetime paying into, and paralyze American businesses.
The immediate future, she said, is uncertain.
Straight talk, things are probably going to get worse before they get better.
Harris said the country may very well be on the verge of entering a constitutional crisis, with Trump gaining more and more control over powers traditionally given to the U.S. Congress and the courts. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
A low-flying plane sprays pink fire retardant in the skies above the Jerusalem area. Several countries are sending firefighting equipment to help Israeli crews. A wildfire shut down a highway linking Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It started yesterday and has already burned about 20 square kilometers. No homes have been damaged. The Conservative Party of Canada and its longtime supporters are breaking down what happened in this election. The party hit a generational high in its share of the popular vote. And sources tell CBC News Pierre Poilievre still has a lot of support as party leader, even though the Liberals will form the next government. As Nicole Williams reports, some Conservative voters are questioning the direction of their party.
his antagonism just bothered me. I said, I can't vote for him.
For nearly every single election over the last 70 years, 92-year-old Carol Howes has voted Conservative. That is, until now.
I may not be around in 4 years' time to make any decisions like that. But if he remains head of the party, I don't think I could ever vote for him. I just don't like his style of politics.
She's part of a group that has been faithful to the party but are now feeling alienated from it, suggesting leader Pierre Poilievre's tactics and rhetoric became too negative or too right-wing to support. Even people like Jordan Priddle, who still voted Conservative this election, understands why some people feel they no longer can.
They might have been too hard to step on the gas too early.
There are many, many shades of blue.
It also marks a growing divide between Conservatives at the federal and provincial levels. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, a progressive Conservative, suggests the party reflect on what will unite their voter base.
I hope they do some soul searching on, what they believe it means to be a Conservative.
Laurie Turnbull is a professor at Dalhousie University in Halifax. She says politically centred voters that used to find a home with the Conservatives might feel forced to vote Liberal, but aren't necessarily happy about it.
That crowd might have a hard time feeling comfortable voting Liberal given everything.
Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Emergency room visits for mental health in Canadian children and youth has gone down by 30%. A new report released today suggests young people are still reaching out for help, but as Alison Northcott tells us, they're going to different places.
It speaks to certainly what I've experienced as a clinician.
Child and youth psychiatrist Dr. Rachel Mitchell at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre in Toronto says she's seen fewer young people turning to emergency rooms for mental health treatment.
The weight of mental health needs amongst children and youth and families is really being held in the community.
New data from the Canadian Institute for Health Information, or CIHI, shows a 30% decrease in the rate of ER visits for mental health disorders by children and youth between 2018 and 2023. But in that same period, more young people in several provinces went to their physician about their mental health, and more were prescribed medications for mood and anxiety. Cheryl Chewy is Director of Health System Analytics at CIHI.
These data points suggest that we're seeing a bit of a shift in where children and youth are getting care for their mental health, and shifting away from hospitals and towards community settings.
Chewy says it doesn't mean young people's mental health has improved, but Dr. Tracy Vaillancourt, the Canada Research Chair in School-Based Mental Health and Violence Prevention at the University of Ottawa, says it may show better awareness.
The good news potentially is that they're coming to their family doctor earlier, and it's being treated before it becomes this full-blown crisis.
Still, Vaillancourt points out the data doesn't capture those she says suffer in silence without treatment from a hospital or a physician. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, welcome to the merry month of May, Jets fans. Hopefully the rest of the month will be like last night for our hometown team. And welcome everyone else, whether you watched or not. We got some rain on the way for Winnipeg today. Thank you for listening this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This hour, we're going to talk about a spring cleanup happening today. Downtown Biz is going to be covering a number of areas in their annual event, and so we'll tell you where. Also, the joys and challenges of intercultural relationships. We have a full interview about that this hour on the show. And then at 10 to 7, to return to politics. How important is it for Prime Minister Mark Carney to strengthen his relationships with the premiers now that he's been elected, and the Liberals have been re-elected? We're going to hear more about that. Premier Wab Kinew tweeting out this week his reaction to the change in government. I keep saying that. It's not a change in government. To the Liberals remain in government. He tweeted, "Congratulations, Mark Carney, on your election as Prime Minister. We look forward to building up this country with you," end quote. Of course, all the premiers having different views on this, depending on where you're at, right? So how are Alberta and Saskatchewan feeling about the relationship? What do they need moving forward, especially in this time when everyone's talking about unity across Canada? So we'll have that discussion politically at 10 to 7. Right now, Heather Wells is in with our news headlines.
Well, Manitoba's PC leader, Abi Khan, says he knows his party has work to do to regain support in Winnipeg. Khan was elected party leader on Saturday. His PCs only have 2 seats in Winnipeg, which is home to more than half of Manitoba's constituents. So we'll hear what Khan has to say about what his party has to do. Winnipeg Jets fans say they will not let the deadly car attack at a Vancouver Street Festival keep them away from whiteout parties. 5,000 fans packed last night's whiteout on the street all around Canada Life Centre. True North says the tragedy in Vancouver did trigger a review of their precautions for the street party. We'll hear about it in our next news at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
I have to say that I caught up, Abby Adiyemi, on my sleep a little bit because I was at Comedy Fest Tuesday night. And of course, election early in the morning at like 3 a.m. we got up to do the show. And then so I caught up on my sleep. But then last night I ruined it all because I stayed up watching hockey.
Oh, no.
It was worth it. It was worth it. Listeners are already writing about the game last night as well. So I'm going to read some of those comments probably around 6:40. We'll have some time. What are you seeing in the forecast today?
It's going to be more like a mixed bag of conditions across board. Mild down south and then chilly as you go up north. We have snow in the part of Flin Flon, Thompson at this time, and it's a bit heavy in that part of the province. But Churchill is a cold spot right now with sunny conditions, actually. Winnipeg, we are at 4 degrees, partly cloudy skies. We're seeing light north breeze coming our way. It feels fresh outside. For the rest of the day, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds with highs close to 14, 15 degrees in some part of the city. The winds will stay breezy for now, but should ease later. No rain expected for the city, so it's going to be a kind of a nice day to get outside and just enjoy that 14 degrees. That'll be warming up to similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region. However, in the western part of the province and the Parkland region, it's more like a chilly start. We have those regions around -2 and -3 for Brandon and Dauphin at this time, warming up to around 11 and 15 degrees, and then Gimli's at 5 degrees this morning. But it's snow in Thompson and sunny in Churchill at this time.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, how's the commute rolling?
Very quiet commute overall. Haven't heard of any major issues out there, but if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, do give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, we flipped the calendar this morning on a brand new month. We're into May, and it can be beautiful by the end of it, but it usually starts pretty dusty and dirty because everything's melted off, right? So today's going to help a little bit. There's a big spring cleanup happening. The Downtown Winnipeg Biz is hosting their annual event this morning. So hundreds are going to gather at Hydro Place to kick this off. They've got over 900 people signed up to participate, so you want to watch for them today out and about. Olivia Bilson's up early. She's Director of Marketing, Communications and Engagement with Downtown Winnipeg Biz. Hi, Olivia.
Good morning, Marcy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. A little tired watching the Jets game last night, just like you.
I know. Dust off the cobwebs and get ready to go cleaning. So what's the plan for today?
So as you mentioned, things will kick off at around 10 o'clock at Hydro Place. Doors actually open at 9 a.m. So we're encouraging all of our participants to come on early. We've got some snacks. We've got some treats. We've got some live music taking place. We even have a little activity station hosted by Arts Junction. But once folks kind of get out the door, we have a few speeches kicking off at 10 o'clock. And then folks will disperse into 6 different areas all throughout our neighborhood. We have cleanup hubs throughout all different zones. We'll transport people to and from via bus if it's a little bit too far to walk. And we'll just get right to it. We'll supply the gloves, the garbage bags, the pickers. It's going to be a really great morning for sure.
It really is. I did this one year with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, walking around and cleaning up. And I don't know, there's something about doing it together to take pride in the city. You mentioned that crews are going to be fanning out. What kinds of neighborhoods are, how far will it extend? Where are the zones through the downtown?
We'll go as far north as into the Chinatown area. We'll go all the way near around the Goldeye Stadium. We'll head all the way over to the Manitoba Legislative Grounds, all in that area. along Broadway, Assiniboine, of course in the Shed, a little bit north across Portage Avenue, in behind Portage Place, and in and around U of W. So quite the large area that we'll be tackling this morning, and everyone I know is really looking forward to it.
I don't know how many people you usually get, but 900 sounds like a lot. They're registered to do this.
It's a large number. You know what? Last year we had about 700 people register, and that was nearly about double we had got. So we weren't quite sure if that was sort of the new norm. And then this year, as you mentioned, we had well over 900 people register to participate. So, I think it really shows that folks had a really great experience last year. We have a lot more people working downtown, a lot more people living downtown, and a lot of people just want to participate. They want to give back to the community. They want to showcase their pride in our downtown. And it really shows that they care. So we're really excited to welcome well over 900 folks to join us today in our efforts.
How much garbage usually gets picked up during these cleanups?
Last year we picked up about 415 garbage bags. So that's a lot. We do know, as you mentioned, quite gray, lots of litter in and around the area after the snow melts. I do know that in the whole year of 2024, our Enviro team cleaned up over 1.3 million liters of garbage. So lots of work to do, and this day certainly has, a big impact on our community, on our team. It really supports our Enviro team, who works 7 days a week, year-round, cleaning our neighborhood.
I use the word pride. How crucial are cleanups like this for neighborhoods to feel pride?
It's so crucial, Marcy. I think, as I mentioned, we have more people living downtown, more people working downtown. We have so many multi-use projects that are taking shape. Our downtown is continuing to transform significantly. And so, hosting these events, it allows folks to come together, to celebrate their pride, to show that they truly care. And I think that's a great example of what's happening today.
All right, just last, what do people need to know if they want to add themselves or not registered in that 900 already? Can they still come down and help? And if they do, what should they know about coming?
Absolutely. Come on down, Hydro Place, be there by 10 o'clock. We'll assign them to a very specific zone. Just wear some comfortable footwear, dress for the weather. It's going to be a beautiful day, and just get ready to have some fun.
All right, thanks a lot, Olivia.
Thanks, Marcy.
So Olivia's right. It is going to shape up to be a decent day, as Abby was mentioning as well. It looks gray, like maybe we're going to get a little bit more rain, but in fact, all of this should move off for a while. Mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance of showers late this afternoon, and the winds will be 40 to 60. So that'll also, though, calm down. So today should shape up pretty good for this. A high of 18 degrees is what's expected. Olivia Bilson's Director of Marketing, Communications, and Engagement with the Downtown Winnipeg Biz. So as mentioned, the doors at Manitoba Hydro Place open at 9 o'clock in case you're curious, but the kickoff is at 10 if you want to go and volunteer.
Celebrate a stunning overtime goal with a burger at McDavid's. A steak sauce capitalizes on a press conference gaffe.
Now, okay, let's see A1 and how can that be helpful?
And updating a 25-year-old message. Seizing the moment on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
6:20 is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC live in downtown Winnipeg, where it's 4 degrees right now, partly cloudy. Brandon's mainly clear and 1. Thompson's mostly cloudy. And up north right now in Thompson, it is -8. Well, most relationships involve some kind of give and some kind of take. But when people come from different cultural backgrounds, that can add another layer to the equation. A recent study published in the Journal of Family and Marriage looked at some of the ways that couples navigate their differences. Joining me to talk about it is Hanya Naimi, and she's a PhD student who led the research from the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. What made you want to look into this?
Yeah, so coming from a multicultural family and having to navigate different cultural differences, this topic just interested me a lot. And in some of my other research, I've looked at cultural differences that people have in these relationships, but I noticed that there hadn't been any work done on how they overcome these differences. And we thought that one way they would do this, it would be by either giving up an aspect of their own culture or taking on an aspect of their partner's culture, or making a cultural sacrifice. And so in this work, we just asked 600 participants from Canada, US, and the UK about the types of cultural sacrifices they've made, and they gave us a lot of interesting anecdotes, so things that spanned a wide variety of topics like cultural celebrations, food, norms around men and women's roles in society, language, parenting practices, prejudice, religion, moving and travel, and interfamily dynamics.
Why the word sacrifice? Like, can you put that in context for us? That's the does that mean? Can you give us an example maybe of one of those areas that you mentioned and how sacrifice might look in a relationship?
Yeah, for sure. So, one of the topics that interested me the most is language. And so our participants talked a lot about being the language barrier, how they had to navigate it with their partners. So either having to learn their partner's language to be able to communicate with their in-laws, or just kind of feeling left out sometimes when they were in community with their partner's family. And so, for example, one of our participants talked about how she had to play the role of the translator because her partner hadn't learned how to kind of communicate, hadn't learned her language. And so when they were with her family, she often had to be the translator, and it was kind of frustrating. On the flip side, some people talked about how they were learning their partner's language, and it was actually a good opportunity for them to kind of grow their skills, and they were actually enjoying it. Some people were learning a language with their children at the same time, and so it was a nice bonding opportunity for them.
What did you learn from the couples about what they shared in terms of how they overcame their differences? You obviously shared some examples there already, but you mentioned parenting, and I think that often, it's one thing to be a couple, but then what about when you're 3 and 4 and 5? What do you do with all those people? What did couples share with you about what that was like as they were, as you mentioned, trying to find that middle point, or what they sacrificed for each other?
Yeah, so a lot of our participants were parents, and I think that was that added an extra layer of kind of challenge to be able to, decide whose cultural celebrations they get to celebrate in their family, or what practices they get to continue, whose heritage kind of gets more integrated into the family. And so what we were finding was that oftentimes these couples were creating their own kind of family cultures that was a mixture of both of their cultures. And so they were celebrating a range of different things, not just from one culture. They were, having different variety of foods, and yeah, so it was a nice kind of opportunity to integrate both of their cultures together.
Were there any things that the couples brought up that were just too large to overcome?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the themes was prejudice. And so some of our participants had to either tolerate prejudice from their social networks because they weren't accepting of their identities, or they had to cut ties with their family members. For example, one of our participants was Mexican, and their partner was from El Salvador. And even though they both spoke Spanish, they talked about how their grandparents weren't really kind of accepting of the type of Spanish that their partner was speaking. And so they had to, and they were very explicitly negative towards their partner. And so they had to kind of decide to cut ties with their grandparents, which is definitely a hard choice to make.
Wow. Overall, I mean, you said that this also, your interest in this came from personal experience. What's gained in these intercultural relationships? What are the benefits?
Yeah, so I think by getting to learn more about other cultures, there's definitely an element of personal growth. And so people are learning a lot more, whether it's, a different language or just history and culture of other cultures. But beyond that, I think there's a ripple effect to society where there's going to be more accepting families and kind of a society that's kind of more tolerant of different traditions and differences.
Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Lots to be learned from that. That is Hanye Naimi with us this morning. She's a PhD student at the University of Toronto. We reached her actually this morning in New York. It is 6:27 a.m. and just time for a bit of music before your CBC Winnipeg News at 6:30. This is Indian City and Road to Redemption.
The road to redemption is full of cracks and stones. It can lead you bruised and broken. It can lead you right back home. Sometimes it's a fine line between love and misery. Sometimes you find yourself where you ain't supposed to be. Mama took us to a church where we weren't acting right. She said the devil himself could take you, and let him, she just might. Restless in the back pews, and I sometimes Sunday clothes. Tried our best to sing the words to songs we didn't know. And there's one more dirty fender, one more hole in the wall, one more of 1,000 nights I didn't sleep till I was home. On the road to redemption, I'm still a rolling stone. Slipping out at midnight through my windowsill. If the fall itself don't break me, it's to climb back up that will. I was teenage, wild and going around, had a fear of missing out. Throwing pebbles at your window, and I pray that you come down. And there's one more dirty fender, one more hole in the wall, one more of 1,000 nights I didn't sleep till I was home. On the road to redemption, but I'm still a rolling stone. Doesn't matter how I get there, just as long as I get through. I'm learning from the lessons right and wrong. I'll sing my penance, it's all that I can do. I'm hoping salvation won't take too long. It's one more dented fender, one more hole in the wall, one more of 1,000 nights I didn't sleep till I was home. On the road to redemption, I'm still a
From Indian City, and we'll get you back to the music and let it take us to the news. Just want to remind you that Crystal Ramlakan's coming up with our business report. We've seen a buy Canadian movement in response to U.S. tariffs, but is it going to last?
I keep on rolling, 'cause I'm a rolling stone.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30 is 4 degrees. Mix of sun and clouds in Winnipeg today. It's going to be all right for the 1st of May. Slightly cooler than seasonal, a high of 14, but wait for that weekend when we get into the high 20s. But for today, 14 is where we're headed. Manitoba PC leader Abi Khan says he knows his party has work to do to regain support in Winnipeg. Khan was elected party leader on Saturday. His PCs only have 2 seats in Winnipeg, home to more than half of Manitoba's constituencies. Khan says he knows his party alienated voters in Manitoba's capital.
I have a lot more to say on a lot of things that have happened in the past with this party And, I would say stay tuned for those as we come, for sure.
In the PC leadership race, Khan received more support in Winnipeg than his rival, Wally Dowdridge. You can read our analysis of that breakdown on our website this morning, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, hockey fans aren't letting last weekend's deadly car attack at Vancouver's Street Festival keep them from Winnipeg whiteout parties. 5,000 Jets fans crammed into last night's street party outside Canada Life Centre. Fan Brandon Chung was happy Winnipeg fans felt safe.
This is an event to be celebrated, right? And, it's I think it shows a lot of strength that people aren't scared about that, right?
True North says the Lapu Lapu Day tragedy when an SUV was driven into a crowd, killing 11, triggered a security review. True North says adjustments were made on where large vehicles and obstructions were placed, blocking all road and sidewalk access to that site. A man has pleaded guilty to killing 3 people in just over 6 months in Winnipeg's inner city. Maxim Dale Garneau was charged in the deaths of 3 men between September 2023 and March 2024. The first killing happened after Garneau got into an argument with a man in a house on Spence Street. The second stemmed from a dispute over a woman on Manitoba Avenue, and the third involved a man on Selkirk Avenue suspected of informing on his accomplices in a robbery. Firearms were used in all 3 killings. Garneau's sentencing on the 3 counts of second-degree murder is scheduled for next month. The latest figures show a significant drop in the number of emergency room visits by Canadian minors needing mental health care. Over a 5-year period starting in 2018, it's down by 30%. Cheryl Chewy is director at the Canadian Institute for Health Information.
These data points suggest that we're seeing a bit of a shift in where children and youth are getting care for their mental health and shifting away from hospitals and towards community settings.
Chewy says in several provinces, more young people are talking to their doctors about their mental health and more are being prescribed medications for mood and anxiety. Well, former U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris giving a speech last night in San Francisco, her first major talk since losing the 2024 U.S. presidential vote. And she took aim at the Trump White House.
We are living in a moment when the checks and balances upon which we have historically relied have begun to buckle.
Harris also criticized Trump's tariffs. She says they are clearly inviting recession. Harris was born in California but spent her high school years in Montreal, where her mother was a cancer researcher. You can hear more on what she had to say, as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Indigenous craftspeople from across Manitoba are showcasing their skills at Assiniboia Downs. As CBC's Rosanna Hempel explains, one man hopes it helps revive traditions.
This is a moose nose that I'm burning off the hair first.
Ovid McLeod makes a delicacy over a fire. He's a fisher and trapper from the northern community of Cross Lake. Here in Winnipeg for an event organized by Manitoba Kiwetinu Okimakanek, McLeod learned about hunting and skinning from his dad and uncles.
It's very important because it's getting kind of lost, and we need to bring it back. Because the younger generation today don't really have an idea how it used to be back then.
McLeod hopes to brush up on preparing hides, learning and teaching, so his family's traditions can be savored too. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, back in the lead. Vlad Nemesnikov on ESPN as the Winnipeg Jets beat the St. Louis Blues 5-3 last night. Nemesnikov stepped up after Mark Scheifele left the game. He took a number of big hits in the first period. It's not known if Scheifele will play in Game 6 tomorrow night in St. Louis. Nemesnikov says the Jets got back to playing their game.
That's Jet hockey defense. We play defense first and then take it to the offense. And I think for the most part of that game, we did that. We stopped them in the neutral zone and forechecked and kind of hounded them in there. And
The Jets now take 3-2 lead in the first round series. Game 6 tomorrow night in St. Louis. Meanwhile, the Montreal Canadiens were eliminated from the playoffs by the Washington Capitals in their Game 5. The final score last night was 4-1. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Dang, I forgot it was in St. Louis.
I know. You expect there's 2 and 2, right?
Yeah, but you're
no,
back and
we go
forth.
back.
I have to say, though, I think it was very good. Hopefully, Shifley will be back, of course, but hope it was very good that they had such a good game and such a good game without him as well, like a lot of the game without him.
Yeah, lots of confidence that they displayed, yeah.
We've got comments. Want to hear a few, Heather, from people watching?
Absolutely.
Tim Wadpole said it was a very good game. I have regrets now that it's morning, though, so he must have stayed up. Anna McCarthy says, just wrote, she just got home from the game. Big smile here on Facebook, folks writing to me. Denise McCrae saying, great game, but echoing what we're talking about. Hopefully Shifley's okay. He's taken so much abuse, she writes. And then finally, Emile Guiboche writes, enjoyed the game. I even wore my jersey and I could hear the fireworks at Canada Life Centre after the game. So lots of celebration here in Winnipeg.
And it was one of those games again, though, where I actually we scored, they scored. And it's like, do you watch? It's so tense.
Oh, I know. Such a great example, though, of the level of athleticism in these athletes, right? I mean, crazy the way they can play hockey. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather's with us through the whole morning. Of course, right now, though, Abby Adiyami's with us. It's 6:37 a.m. for your Thursday morning regional forecast on CBC.
Good morning, Marcy. We're looking at a mixed bag of weather across the province today. Sunshine in some areas, cloud and showers in others, and that chill still hanging out in the Churchill region. Let's start off in Winnipeg at this point. Right now, it's 4 degrees, partly cloudy outside. Today, we will see a mix of sun and clouds with some northwest winds, making it feel a bit breezy at times. We're heading for a comfortable high of 14 degrees today. No rain expected. Tonight, more partly cloudy conditions will then cool off to around 1 degrees overnight. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, Modern Winkler, Alton and Morris. Partly cloudy at this time. Temperatures hovering around 6 and 7 degrees. Expect a mix of sun and clouds through the day. It's going to get breezy with northwest winds. High will get close to 17 degrees for that part. Currently, we're looking at a high of 16 degrees. Heading to the Westman region, currently -2 in Brandon under mainly clear skies. The sun is about to make its appearance. Sunshine will dominate the morning for that part of the province. The clouds will build around the noon period. There is a good chance of showers or even thunderstorms later in the afternoon. Winds will come from the northeast. It will be light later, but then it may pick up slightly later. You will see highs around 15. In Dauphin and the rest of the Parkland region, temperatures hovering around -3, -4 at this time. Clear skies, you do have a few clouds will build up this morning with showers possible. That would start around the noon period. The winds will be light from the east, then shifting northwards later. We'll see high close to 11 degrees for folks in the Parkland region. In Gimli, it is clear, 5 degrees at this time. The Interlake region is expecting more clouds to roll in this morning. Light breeze from the north. High will get to 10 degrees. There's a chance of rain later in the day for folk in the Gimli region. The powerful influence around in areas, we're looking at temperatures around -3 at this time. We still have some lingering snow for that part of the province, which is expected to taper off this morning. A few stormy breaks expected to crack through, and we'll see some light breeze. We'll see highs around 5 degrees for folks in that part. And then Thompson, you are currently at -8. Also light snow falling at this time. Flurries will end this morning, followed by some clearing. Some light winds. Highs would get to 3 degrees. Churchill, you are frigid at -22. Mercy, Churchill is still Churchill.
It's a good reminder, right?
Yes. Though it's sunny already there, but the sun is not really going to be warming things up. It will continue through the day. We're going to see light west breeze. The high will only be around -6 for folks there, and the wind chill feels like -14 this morning. So mild and breezy down south, and it's cold up north.
It was a good reminder of also the in the country, how spring is so different. After the election, I was watching some of the interviews from up north in Nunavut, and of course everyone's full winter gear still. And then they were in BC, and everybody was like lounging by the lake. We're always somewhere in the middle here. We get both across the province.
Both. True.
All right, let's find out if any of that's impacting the commute. My guess is no, but have you heard anything?
No, haven't heard. Yeah.
No.
No, it's been very quiet out there so far. But if you do see something going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, do give me a call and I'll let folks know what you're seeing. That number 204-788-3093.
So let me ask you this, because it's a beautiful morning to be, if you're a runner. I mean, it's dry now, so spring's always awesome.
Yeah.
How early do you think people start training for marathon? Because now it's May, so the
already.
marathon's next month.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people have probably been ramping it up for at least a month or two now.
And I have to check here because the Manitoba Marathon moves, so I might be misspeaking here because I know it always was on Father's Day, and I don't remember the date this year, right?
Yeah, I haven't checked. Usually it's Father's Day.
At any rate, your training, when you ran like long distances, when would you start training for that?
Oh, I probably started training in earnest at least 4 or 5 months before, like the big race. I'm kind of ramping it up.
I'm thinking of the teddy bear picnic. The marathon is on Father's Day.
Okay, yes, marathon's on Father's Day. Yeah.
I had a different event in my head, but
okay.
I think I'd have to start training. I mean, I guess it depends where you're coming from in terms of your fitness, but
yeah. It depends where you're starting from. If you've never run ever before, you definitely want to get started a little bit earlier. But...
At any rate, I've seen a whole bunch of runners out right now.
Oh yeah, they are out in full force finally, especially now that the sidewalks aren't slippery. It's much easier to pick it up.
6:42. Thanks, Corey.
No problem.
Let's talk to Crystal Ramlakan. She is here to tell us about business news this morning. Hi, Crystal.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So we've seen this Buy Canadian movement in response to U.S. tariffs. You have some data about, an analysis about whether or not it's going to last.
Yeah, well, the chief executive of Canada's largest grocer, Loblaw, says the trend may not last. But the company says it's still working to stock shelves with more Canadian products as shoppers are looking for alternatives during this trade war. So President and CEO Per Bank predicts maybe a third of the effort will stick long term. And he says price and quality are still the most important factors for customers. But he says right now shoppers do prefer Canadian products if the price is almost the same, up to about a 5% difference. So earlier this year, Loblaw began highlighting domestic products in its stores while also marking products that have gone up in price due to tariffs. And the company has also added a swap and shop feature to its loyalty app to help shoppers find Canadian products more easily. But the company is still doing well, though. It's reporting that its first quarter profit rose compared to a year ago.
To another story, there are reports that Tesla's looking to find a replacement for CEO Elon Musk. What do we know about this?
Yeah, but Tesla's chair is denying that Wall Street Journal report that says board members have reached out to executive search firms to find a new replacement. So the Journal is reporting board members reached out about a month ago to several firms, but the company's chair says the report is absolutely false and says the electric vehicle makers board is highly confident in Musk's ability to, quote, continue executing on the exciting growth plan ahead. And Musk also says on X the report is a deliberately false article. Now, last week, Musk did say he would cut back significantly on the time he devotes to the Trump administration and spend more time running Tesla. His work at the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, where he has led efforts to cut federal jobs, has been one of the most controversial aspects of the Trump presidency. And Musk's time away from Tesla has also been a concern for investors as sales have been on the decline. Now, the Journal's report says the board met with Musk and asked him to acknowledge publicly that he would spend more time at Tesla, but it's unclear if he was aware of the succession planning or if his pledge has affected the efforts.
And Duolingo is making some major changes to the company.
Yes, so its CEO says the company will be AI first and will start to phase out contractors for work that can be handled by artificial intelligence. So the CEO says this is to overcome human limitations and creating the massive amount of content the language learning app needs to scale. So the company will only allow new hires once teams prove they can't automate that work. And this move follows similar ones from Uber and Shopify. Both say AI will be integral to their companies. And Duolingo employees can also expect their AI use to be graded in their performance reviews. So the app has seen large user growth since it went public 4 years ago. Its paid subscriber count grew from just under 2 million in 2021 to over 8 million last year. And the CEO has told employees that despite AI not being perfect, the company would rather move quickly and take occasional small hits on quality than move slowly and miss the movement.
What are the numbers telling us today about the markets?
So in Europe, the UK is moving between losses and gains, while most other European markets are closed for the May 1st holiday, May Day. In Asia, markets are rising after swings on Wall Street overnight. So Japan is up, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is up. Oil is down $1.30 to $56.91 US per barrel. Gold is down $63.10 to $3,224.28 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.12 of a cent to 72.4 cents US.
All right, Crystal Ramakan, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
I'm just going to mention a listener line question that we've been talking about this morning. That's Crystal Ramlakan with Business News. You may have heard on World Report, though, it is May 1st, so it's International Workers' Day. And I just want to throw this out there in case you want to call in. I'm wondering, as a worker, what is one thing that could be improved that, a government would have control over, whether federal or provincial, that would change your life? And I know, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe everyone's going to call and say, minimum wage or pay, but it may not be that. It may be something around leave, or it may be something around flexibility, or maybe something around scheduling hours, or maybe it is pay. But let us know, what's one thing that could significantly improve your life that could be changed if you're a worker? 788-3205, 788-3205. Well, still ahead, building bridges with the premiers. We're going to talk to Jonathan Malloy. He's a professor of poli-sci Carleton to talk about how important it is right now for Prime Minister Mark Carney to strengthen his relationship with all of the premiers. And of course, all the challenges he could face is something we'll also discuss. So that's still ahead in this half hour. But right now, a little bit of music from Jess Moskaluk, who's a Juno Award-winning country star and is heading out on the road this fall. The tour's called the Life for Me Tour. It's making stops in 8 different provinces, with a number of dates coming up. So this tune is the title track.
I don't wanna talk about your city lights, living like uptown, downtown, not a star in the sky. Backyards like I'm big, make you wanna buy a ring. Not much in the sticks, but we got everything. Corn-fed, cornbread, it's the high life. I said what I said, I like slow, just a rolling down country roads. You can leave me where the green grass grows, where I know everybody. Yeah, small town living is a life for me. It's the life for me. It's the life for me. Small town living is the life for me. It's right for me. It's right for me. Small town living is the life for me. What you know about four-wheeling in the outskirts? What you know about getting raised on that good dirt? What you know about a bonfire on a cold night? What you know about making out in some headlights? Barn red, truck bed, sipping high life. I said what I said, I like slow, just a rolling down country roads. You can leave me where the green grass grows, where I know everybody. Yeah, small town living is a life for me. I'm home, where I'm riding by fields of gold. I can feel it in my heart and soul, and everybody knows me. Yeah, small town living is a life for me. It's the life for me. It's the life for me. Small town living is the life
Jess Moskaluk, Life for Me. I mentioned her tour coming up. By the way, she does also have some local stops here. She's performing in Niverville June 7th and Brandon on October 18th.
CBC Music, live at Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. A new season of episodes now available. Bahamas, The Glorious Sons, The Sadies, Field Guide, Serena Ryder, O.C. Elliott, and Chantal Kreviazek. CBC Music, live at Massey Hall. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Well, premiers across the country have been congratulating Prime Minister Mark Carney on his election win. On Instagram, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew posted, quote, "Congratulations, Mark Carney, on your election as Prime Minister. We are looking forward to building up this country with you," end quote. But some premiers have been quick to point out their demands as well. In the face of Trump's tariffs, each province has a unique concern, and it could be challenging for Prime Minister Carney to address all of this, especially with the West. For his thoughts on what it's going to take to build strong relationships across the board, we have Jonathan Malloy with us, Professor of Political Science at Carleton University. Good morning.
Good morning.
I guess, first of all, how critical is it in this moment that he tries to build unity with the premiers?
Well, it's never not important for the Prime Minister to work with the premiers. It's the most important relationship really in Canadian politics. I think with the Trump tariffs and the external threat that we're facing, it's very important to try and get the premiers on board, to try and get them to work together. So the relationship is really imperative at the moment.
Scott Moe from Saskatchewan said, his quote was, I think, "hit the reset button." So there is sort of an opening here. What do you think Mark Carney's strategy might be?
Well, I think that's part of it. Particularly with provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan, they had a pretty poor relationship with the Trudeau government by the end, mainly over energy issues. And Mr. Moe, as he says he's willing to sort of redo things. I'm not sure Daniel Smith is quite as conciliatory, but that's it. I mean, Mr. Carney's going to say he's a new person. He's more open to energy projects for those provinces. And generally, I think he still has a bit of a honeymoon glow becoming Prime Minister, just winning his election. And so he's going to try and build on that goodwill, because that goodwill is not going to last by itself.
So let's talk about Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, because she said she would protect the province against, quote, future hostile acts, end quote, from Ottawa. But she's also representing, I think a lot of people talk about her as an individual, but she is representing a population that really, in fairness, does feel that at least Trudeau and the Liberals abandoned them, right? Like, he was premier for all, but really stopped talking to sort of to Alberta in some ways. A lot of people really felt abandoned about him. So how might Carney have to approach that relationship specifically with Alberta, especially when it comes to energy?
Well, as you laid it out there, it's a very complicated relationship. It often is with Alberta, with the rest of the country, because oil and gas is just so important in Alberta to define the relationship of the country. And the rest of the country has different views, particularly on the environment. It's not so much about putting down Alberta, but it's worried about pipelines and things like that there. So it's a very tense relationship. And as you pointed out, a lot of Albertans are very angry, and Danielle Smith too is to some extent channeling that anger. And of course, she. Her predecessor, Jason Kenney, was overthrown for not channeling it enough, frankly. So all it's to say is that she's going to have a combative relationship with Mark Carney. But on the other hand, Carney, there is a chance to reset, as Scott Moe put it. And I think Carney has been more open to that there. So at least there's a chance to build a new relationship there. But there's no illusion that it's going to be easy.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford might need to repair his relationship with the federal Conservatives more than with Carney, because he was pretty supportive. How do you see that relationship playing out, though?
Well, as you said, Mr. Ford's main enemy has been Pierre Poilievre. That would have been a very good relationship. Mr. Poilievre won. Ford has gotten along quite well with the federal Liberal government under Trudeau. He's gotten quite along with Carney so far, and that's because really, and particularly now, it's the shared interest in fighting the Trump tariffs, particularly protecting the Ontario auto and manufacturing sector, which is hit hard. So it's a very pragmatic relationship. It seems to be a very good relationship. But again, it's really about a shared interest, particularly the manufacturing sector in Ontario.
And can you speak to Manitoba's relationship and Wab Kinew, our premier here, with Mark Carney, and what Manitoba might might need other relationship? Because from where I sit, I mean, we're one of those provinces that, we're diversified. We do identify with the West, but we also identify with the East, if you will. We have an NDP provincial government, but we also have an opportunity here that we have never had in Manitoba. We're talking about, better relationships across the country and fewer borders between provinces in terms of trade and such. We're talking about energy exports being needed. We have a lot to give. Like, we could really position ourselves right now to be more than we often don't consider ourselves a have province. So what does that look like in terms of Mark Carney and Wab Kinew moving forward?
Well, I think you put it well there, that Manitoba could possibly have a very important bridge building role here. That it has, it's part of the West, it's part of the prairies, but as you said, it's got a less combative relationship, it's got a more diversified economy that's not as dependent on energy there, and of course, new Democratic premier along with BC. So it's a bit outside some of these other combative relationships. And I think Manitoba, I think it could be Mr. Carney might well sort of try and use Manitoba as sort of the exemplar of a province that is willing to reduce trade barriers, that is willing to build new relationships, and is willing to really kind of do the best for Canada. And that's what Mr. Carney is going to appeal to all the provinces, is to say, hey, we've got to maybe put aside some of our petty interests. We've got to really appeal to what's best for Canada. And so, as you said, Manitoba has a history of doing that in the Canadian Federation. And so there's some good prospects for that, for sure.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. We'll have to leave our conversation there for now.
Thank you.
I'm starting to wonder how long it's going to be before we start talking about transfer payments, though, right? Because what all the premiers, the one thing they always unite is across the board is on healthcare. So what's that going to look like as well under Mark Carney? We've been talking to Jonathan Malloy about the relationship between the Prime Minister and the premiers. He's a professor in the Department of Political Science over at Carleton University. Heather Wells is in with local news updates now. It's 7:03.
Good morning. Yes, and we take a look at provincial politics. Manitoba PC leader Abhi Khan says he knows his party has work to do to regain support in Winnipeg. Khan was elected leader on Saturday. His PCs only have 2 seats in Winnipeg, home to more than half of Manitoba's constituencies. And it is the final day of an event celebrating traditional Indigenous foods and medicines. Craftspeople from First Nations around Manitoba and Saskatchewan are at Assiniboia Downs. They're showcasing cooking, medicines, and moccasin making. We'll take you there in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We have Bartley Kivas from CBC who's going to join us to build on what Heather just mentioned there and breaking down how the PCs voted for their leader here in Manitoba. So stay tuned for that. Also in the next hour of Information Radio, many of us might be familiar with the signs of a heart attack, but what do you do when there are no signs? We're going to talk to a Winnipeg doctor about silent heart attacks. And then at 7:40, a really lovely feature interview. Canada's oldest permanent theatre company, Cirque Molière in St. Boniface, just turned 100. Today, we're going to hear the story of the first woman to lead Cirque. And that's Winnipeg's French language theatre, of course. And stay tuned because that comes through the eyes of a CBC Radio Canada reporter who has a unique connection to Pauline Boutal. So that's still ahead. She made a podcast about it too. We hope you tune into that. It is partly cloudy. It's 4 degrees in Winnipeg. Today, a mix of sun and cloud. And late this afternoon, just a 30% chance we'll see some showers. Winds will be south 40 to 60, but then calm down as well later in the day. And right now, winds are light. So I think we're probably already past that gusty part of the day. But today's high is going to be 18 degrees in Winnipeg. In Brandon, mainly clear, -2 right now. Still not quite at 0. And in Thompson, it's mostly cloudy and it's -8. So obviously still trying to get above 0 as well. Your morning commute has pretty good. Nice dry spring conditions on this May 1st. Stay with us. It is 1 minute to 7 o'clock and World Report's next on CBC.
Today on The Current.
You could spend 5 lifetimes exploring Canada. There's just so much to see, and there's a trip for everyone.
You, The Current's listeners, have been voting in droves for our Ultimate Canadian Travel Top 10 list. The big reveal, Rick Mercer is back with us to talk about your choices for the best places to travel to across Canada. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. They are 7 young Canadians. They are still teenagers. And today, the Supreme Court of Canada will decide whether or not their case aimed at fighting climate change will be heard. My World Report co-host John Northcott is here in studio with more. And John, if the Supreme Court decides to hear this case, it would make history. How did we get here?
Marcia, we all know about the effects of climate change. Higher temperatures, floods, fires, poor air quality. These young people, with Sophia Mather, who's just turned 18, lending her name to this case, arguing that the actions of the Ontario government effectively violate their charter rights because of the effects that climate change will have on their health. In other words, as the next generation, they look at the effects climate change will have on their lives and argue not only is it unhealthy, but discriminatory. Not to get too far into the legal weeds on this one, but the teens argue that under the Charter Sections 7 and 15, the Doug Ford government's Cap and Trade Cancellation Act of 2019 violates their right to life, liberty, and security of person, as well as discrimination based on age. This case has ping-ponged back and forth in Ontario's lower courts, with the Ford government choosing to take the case to the Supreme Court for a ruling. If the court even agrees to hear the case, it will be a big deal. It would be the first case in Canada to rule on whether a government is obligated to meet higher emissions targets.
So, John, tell us more about these young people.
Marcia, the case bears the name of Sophia Mather. Despite her young age, she's been involved in the climate fight for years now, taking her fight to Ottawa and Capitol Hill and Washington, D.C., along with international climate activist Greta Thunberg. Here is Mather.
I believe that youth deserve a say in issues like climate change, social justice, or things that affect us on the daily. I also believe that youth deserve a say in our government's policies and what they do with our future.
We've just come through an election where the issue of climate change was notably largely absent. If the court decides today to deal with this case, it might force governments to put their responsibilities for the climate's future back on the agenda.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Marcia.
World Report co-host John Northcott. The ink is dry on the rare minerals deal between the United States and Ukraine, and both countries say they have a lot to gain. Ukraine is believed to have vast reserves of minerals that are critical to military technology and renewable energy. But it needs U.S. support to fend off the Russian invasion. Anna Cunningham tells us what we know about the deal so far.
I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine.
Confirmation from the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. After months of delay, this deal is finally done. But it is a different deal than the one offered in February when the world witnessed this explosive argument between the US and Ukrainian presidents.
With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't have your playing cards.
What's now been signed gives Washington and Kyiv a share in profits from the future sale of Ukraine's mineral and energy reserves. There will be a joint reconstruction investment fund. Profits will be invested exclusively in Ukraine, which will not be asked to pay back any so-called debt to the US, something President Donald Trump had initially demanded. Ukraine wanted security guarantees, but the only security clause puts the US under no obligation, nor does the deal mention weapons. Ukraine's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal says the deal is good, equal and beneficial. Russia sees it differently. Former President Dmitry Medvedev says Trump has finally forced Kyiv to pay for US aid. This deal may well prove a consequential moment in the war. The US now has a stake in Ukraine's future. But what it is yet to achieve is peace. Overnight drone strikes once again hitting Odessa, Kharkiv and Russian-occupied parts of Kherson. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Thousands of people are holding May Day demonstrations to mark the International Labour Holiday. In Seoul, South Koreans are demanding improved worker rights, and on the streets of Istanbul, protesters clash with police. Officials have suspended train, bus, and ferry service in an effort to stop the labor activists. Demonstrations have been banned in Turkey for more than a decade. May Day recognizes the struggles and triumphs of global labor movements. The holiday's roots stretch back over a century. Consent and the timing of consent will be at issue today in the sexual assault trial of 5 hockey players. A London, Ontario jury has been viewing video filmed the night of the alleged incident. The 5 players, all former members of Canada's World Junior team, have pleaded not guilty to the charges against them. They are related to alleged sexual assault after a Hockey Canada gala in London, Ontario in June 2018. Karen Pauls has been following the trial.
Just hours after his NHL playoff game, Washington Capitals forward Taylor Radish will resume testifying by video link in the sexual assault trial of his former World Junior teammates. The Crown is asking him about the night that ties them all together and the events leading to allegations of sexual assault, including text messages sent from Michael McLeod inviting some of his teammates for three-way and oral sex with a woman he met earlier at a local bar. The jury has already seen 2 videos from McLeod's phone where the woman, known as EM, said she consented to everything and that she enjoyed it.
There have been a lot of controversy and debates about these videos because, again, consent is something that can only really happen in the moment.
Caitlin Mendez is a sociology professor at Western University and an expert in technology-facilitated sexual violence. She hasn't seen these videos but says they must be viewed in the context of when they were recorded.
Who else was in the room? What were they doing? Did she feel as though, she had to record these videos? Is she even capable of consenting?
Lisa Kerr agrees. She teaches law at Queen's University in Kingston.
The video is not going to be determinative of whether there was consent at the time for the specific acts. The video may be helpful for assessing the credibility of witnesses, for sort of getting a sense of what was really going on here.
Radish isn't the only hockey player expected to testify as the Crown prepares the jury to hear from the main witness, the young woman at the center of these allegations. Karen Pauls, CBC News, London, Ontario.
The number of emergency room visits by Canadian minors needing mental health help has dropped. In 2023, it was down 30% from the number of visits in 2018. Cheryl Chewy is a director at the Canadian Institute for Health Information.
These data points suggest that we're seeing a bit of a shift in where children and youth are getting care for their mental health and shifting away from hospitals and towards community settings.
She says in several provinces, more young people are talking to their doctors about their mental health, and more were prescribed medications for mood and anxiety. The Premier of British Columbia is promising to review the Mental Health Act. It governs the rights of people with mental illness. This past weekend, a man who was under mental health supervision allegedly drove an SUV into the Lapu Lapu Day Festival. 11 people were killed. And as Georgie Smythe reports, the Premier says it is a signal the law urgently needs to be modernized.
We need to be able to force people into care. That's
Modernising the Mental Health Act was on the government's to-do list, says Premier David Eby, but he says it can't wait any longer.
It's a commitment to ensure an act that was introduced and passed in the 90s is meeting the moment.
Better balancing the rights of a person in distress with the safety of others will be one of the priorities, but no timeline was given for the work. Police confirmed the accused, Kaiji Adam Lowe, had a significant history of non-criminal encounters with law enforcement regarding his mental health. But in this instance, Vancouver Coastal Health, which monitored his mental health, tells CBC News Lowe was following an established treatment plan and was not considered a public safety risk. It also says involuntary treatment wouldn't have been warranted because of his compliance with treatment. He's been charged with 8 counts of second-degree murder.
There are people out there who should not be directing their own care.
Mayor Ken Sim wants help from the province and Ottawa to expand the 400 mandatory treatment beds currently being rolled out.
Vancouver is stepping up, but we can't and we should not be doing this alone.
BC will hold a day of mourning on Friday to honour the lives lost and changed in this tragedy. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Partly cloudy and 4 degrees in Winnipeg to start the month of May. Welcome to Thursday morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM. Also at 9:90 a.m. on the app and on YouTube, where you just saw a beautiful shot of the sky, the sun coming through those clouds, and so it should be a pretty nice day today. This hour on the program, one of our Radio Canada journalists at CBC Manitoba has a unique connection to the first woman to lead Cirque Molière, Canada's oldest permanent theatre company in St. Boniface that just celebrated 100 years last week. She's going to be in to share more details about her 5-part podcast about Pauline Boutal and talk about an event that maybe you want to attend tonight. In addition, CBC reporter Bartley Kivas will join us in studio as well. He's going to break down how the Progressive Conservatives in Manitoba chose their leader under a weighted ballot system and what the candidates say about how close this race was. We will begin, though, this half hour officially in a moment, talking about the idea of a silent heart attack. What is that? If you have no signs, how often does that happen? So stay tuned. We have a feature interview on that as well. Heather Wells is here to update other news stories at 11 minutes past 7 a.m.
Good morning. Well, a man has pleaded guilty to killing 3 people in just over 6 months in Winnipeg's inner city. Maxime Dale Garneau was charged in the deaths of 3 men between September 2023 and March 2024. His sentencing on 3 counts of second-degree murder is scheduled for next month. Winnipeg Jets fans say they will not let the deadly car attack at a Vancouver street festival keep them away from whiteout street parties. Among 5,000 fans at last night's whiteout, AJ Bartel says he was thinking of the victims at the Lapu Lapu Day Festival in Vancouver. He says he's praying for them, but adds he does feel safe at Winnipeg's whiteout street parties. We'll hear what True North has done as well to make sure that people are safe. That's coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby.
Calm and mild start across the province. We're looking at a mix of sunshine and some cloudy conditions from the south all the way up. Right now, Winnipeg, it is 4 degrees. We already seeing the sunshine peeking through. It's going to be a calm start to the day. No rain in sight so far. Breezy from the northwest, just enough to feel like refreshing for the day. As we go through the day, expect this mix of sun and cloudy conditions to take over. The winds will then pick up just a little bit this afternoon. Temperatures will climb to 14 degrees, and similar conditions we're seeing in the southern regions, where up north we're still seeing that snow in Thompson and the Flin Flon area, while Churchill is pretty freezing at this time.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
The commute, Corey.
Very quiet commute over all of it. If you do see something, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, for an ask to call us about the commute, to the listener line on another topic, we did get a call right now this morning in the last half hour. I asked a question. Today is actually International Day of Workers. You might have heard that on World Report. So I've been asking this morning, and I've asked on Facebook as well, what is one thing that would improve your life at work?
My name is Caroline. I am looking for greater protections for parents with children with disabilities. I think there's some increased flexibility required by employers and support that's required from the government to make that happen. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. 788-3205 to weigh in. So, can you have a heart attack and not know it? Earlier this month, a Winnipeg runner, Gary Ang, was competing in the Boston Marathon when he experienced something called a silent heart attack. It was only after crossing the finish line and having to go to the hospital he learned what had actually happened to him. Gary shared his story with CBC's Chloe Friesen on Up to Speed yesterday.
I started off the race and I felt really good. And at about 15 kilometers, I noticed that I was having difficulty breathing, and occasionally I got lightheaded. And I just thought it was the rolling hills that we weren't used to running in Manitoba. But as the race went on, it got worse and worse and worse until I finally finished and I crossed that line. And I ran into another Winnipegger that was there, and he crossed quite a bit earlier than I. And he had difficulty breathing as well. And he had to go to the medical tent, and he was fine. So I thought, it was just my allergies and everything was blooming in Boston. So I thought I'd just been sucking up allergens for 26 miles, and that's what it was.
So there was never a moment where the thought of a heart attack entered your head?
Never.
What did that feel like as you were running? Were you in any pain? Is this something that you had experienced before in other marathons?
No, I've never ever experienced pain running. I had no chest pain. The only symptoms I felt were shortness of breath, and occasionally I was lightheaded.
So that's runner Gary Eng speaking yesterday to CBC's Chloe Friesen. So what exactly is a silent heart attack? How common is this? Dr. Lori Kirschenbaum is with us via Zoom, director of the Cardiovascular Sciences Institute at St. Boniface Hospital. Thank you so much for making time with us.
Good morning, Marcy. Thank you.
Good morning. So what are the main differences between a silent heart attack, which is a term that I'm using, I hope it's the right term, and a regular heart attack that would show symptoms?
Right. Thank you. So I really thank you again for having me here. I'm happy to provide some information. So let's start at the beginning. Typically, heart attacks occur because the flow of blood to the heart muscle is decreased. Typically, it results in a decreased oxygen delivery to the heart muscle, and as a result, the muscle cells become irritable and they begin to die, and that's the cause of the pain. That's the real short answer. So typically, it's associated with symptoms. The classic symptoms include, chest pain. It could be crushing, radiating pain down the arm, pins and needles, some discomfort in the upper body, sweating, etc., nausea, and shortness of breath. But with a silent heart attack, some of the symptoms occur that are even nondescript, and they could be just feeling tired, short of breath, nausea. A person may even feel like they're having the flu. They're not the classic symptoms of a classic heart attack, and sometimes they just go unrecognized. Even indigestion can be considered to be a form of a silent heart attack, but the severity can be just as severe. And in the case of the runner that we just heard from, it happens, and unfortunately, they were very fortunate to get treatment.
So do we know, or have there been any studies done about who might be more prone to a silent heart attack versus a symptomatic heart attack?
Yeah, so the way the stats work, there is limited information. Anywhere between 30 and 50% of individuals can experience a silent heart attack. It's more prevalent in women than in men, and that's largely because women's hearts are different than men's hearts, and I can chat a little bit about that. But that's the problem. A lot of individuals will have a silent heart attack. It could be as devastating or damaging with or without symptoms, and it's not recognizing the symptomology. Fortunately, the runner in the last piece, had a medical tent and was able to say, yeah, I'll go and get myself checked out. But a lot of people just might feel tired or feel like they're having the flu or just something that's nondescript, not the classic symptomology, and it goes unrecognized, and the heart muscle becomes damaged.
So for how long can you have those symptoms? Because there's going to be a lot of people listening this morning going, hang on a minute, I've had indigestion, or my arm's been numb, or things that they've associated with other issues perhaps.
Yeah.
When do you worry or ask your doctor maybe to check your heart, or can you live with those different symptoms for like a month, or are people walking around never knowing they had a heart attack?
No, well, so there are two points to that. In some cases, if the heart attack is occurring because the oxygen flow to the muscle is decreased, it can occur in hours or days. So over a period of even 3 or 4 days, this could occur. But once the heart muscle becomes damaged, the symptomology will increase, and ultimately the person will then feel more tired or feel more fatigued, and they end up showing up at their doctor's office. So it's the prolonged event, or they may have no further symptoms, and it's only when they go to their doctor for a standard physical exam and the doctor does some blood work or an electrocardiogram, they can recognize that the person did have, in fact, a heart attack. So this is the scary part, because in some cases, the heart attack could be occurring, if it's mild, and completely go unrecognized.
That's super interesting, because I think that I framed in my own head, at least, I knew that about stroke, that you could go and then they say, actually, by the way, when they check you out, you've had a stroke along the way somewhere here. That's the same with heart attack, you're saying?
Yes, in fact, I was going to mention cardiovascular disease includes stroke as well, and that's the other side of it. So again, the same issue occurs if blood flow to the brain is interrupted in any way. It impairs oxygen delivery to the brain itself, and the same thing with the heart muscle. Anytime oxygen delivery is impaired because the coronary arteries are blocked or impaired in some way, that will ultimately result in heart muscle damage. In the case of a stroke, brain cells become damaged.
Now, Gary had no personal history of heart attacks heart disease before, rather. How concerned should somebody, otherwise a healthy person, be about something like this happening to them? And I'm going to throw the two questions at you because I know you can take two in a row. Prevention. We have to talk about prevention for this, or what you want people to keep in mind, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, so in Gary's case, it's a really interesting event because this is not uncommon for runners to develop. They may have had pre-existing disease, but they may not have known about it because they were conditioned. And at some point they get stressed. As he mentioned, he just attributed his shortness of breath to the run, which typically happens when people are running, or he attributed it to allergy. But there may have been some underlying cause that triggered it, and with the run. And it's very common that a lot of individuals who have sudden death or silent heart attack, they develop arrhythmias or abnormalities in their electrical activity in the heart. So that gets triggered, and ultimately that could end up killing a person. So sometimes the symptoms are only seen when the heart is stressed, and in a case of an athlete, somebody's trained, you don't expect it, but it does occur. And it's very difficult, unless there's genetic testing or some history, to really understand, if this person is going to have a heart attack or not. And again, in contrast, I'm going to go on to your second point, prevention. So in some of the risk factors that lead to heart attack are sedentary lifestyle, so people who are not exercising, so physical activity is important. That isn't the case with Gary. High cholesterol, poor diet, of course, people who smoke, alcohol consumption, etc., stress levels, all those variables impact heart disease. Diabetes, for example, hypertension that's not well treated, all contribute to heart attack in general. And if one or more symptoms occur, in addition to the person being fit, it could result in a silent heart attack. So what do you do for prevention? The prevention really is just lifestyle and trying to avoid some of these risk factors that would otherwise cause a heart attack. And in the event that a person is feeling unwell for a few days, or they feel flu-like, or they're just not themselves, fatigued unusually, then they should seek medical attention. And obviously it's 911, and then they call their doctor.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Lots of valuable information in the conversation.
Thanks, Marcy.
Via Zoom with us live, that's Dr. Lori Kirschenbaum, the director of the Cardiovascular Sciences Institute at St. Boniface Hospital.
Patio season is upon us, and the Winnipeg Comedy Festival is hosting some serious fun at the Gas Station Arts Center patio April 30th to May 4th. Featuring the Great Comedy Showdown, the music of DJ JPQ, and the CBC Fun Zone of patio games. Free, all ages, every festival day. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival. Seriously funny. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
It is 7:24 a.m. and congrats to everyone who got up and did a little stand-up for the very first time on Tuesday night. I was on the stage of the Gas Station Theatre, and I just want to give congratulations to Jen Zerati from the Winnipeg Free Press, Richard Kluche from over at CGOB, Dr. Mark Cooley, who is known as a professor in town, teacher, maybe he taught you. He won the night. He was just hilarious, Dr. Cooley. And then Taz Stewart, the bug guy, led off the show, right? The entomologist, former city entomologist. So we all had so much fun. We shared our nerves backstage and bonded a little bit, but the Comedy Fest, as you just heard, does continue. Still ahead, we have morning sports. In a few minutes, we'll talk about that. It is sunny, mostly in Winnipeg downtown. I shouldn't say mostly. It's kind of partly sunny instead of partly cloudy, I'm going to say. Winds are northwest at 15, and it's 4 degrees, as I've been saying. Brandon, though, is below zero, right at zero, actually, right now, 0. And Thompson is still below 0. It's -8. Well, before we do get to sports, we need to turn to something very serious and something very shocking. A devoted city councillor and karaoke superstar has died. just feels heartbreaking this morning because this is Jason Shrier, right? Singing karaoke. He loved it. Now, Councillor Ross Eady is remembering who he calls his best friend and colleague, Councillor Jason Shrier, by talking about his love of karaoke and more. Jason Shrier passed away at the age of 57. We have not yet heard a cause of death, so we don't know exactly what happened. But after 8 o'clock in the last hour of our show, we will be joined by Councillor Eady, who's going to share why he wants, how he wants to pay tribute, rather, to his friend. And so, and also his a city councillor who is gone far too soon. So stay tuned. We're going to hear about that coming up after 8. Right now, let's turn our attention back to morning sports. Scott Regehr joins us. Hi, Scott.
Hi there, Marcy.
I stayed up late, and so did a lot of people in this province. Yeah. What a game last night. The Jets back on top with their series with St. Louis. It is, though, not without a cost.
Yeah, right. The good news, Winnipeg, beat the Blues and is up 3-2 now. The bad news, the loss of Mark Scheifele. In the process, the Jets' top centerman took big hits from Braden Shen and then Radek Faksa in the first period, Marcy, and did not return in the rest of the game. Many think the biggest damage was done on the Shen hit, a nasty bit of business where the St. Louis forward left his feet and was penalized, although Blues coach Jim Montgomery takes umbrage with that assessment.
Let's make it clear. 55 got hurt from the Faksa hit. He played 6 minutes after the Shen hit. He didn't come back after he got rocked by Faksa.
Okay. Jets coach Scott Arniel, what do you think?
Well, I didn't know Monty got his medical degree. I'm trying to say how our player got hurt. He's way off base. There's some things that have been going on in this series, and that was a repeat of what we've seen before. A player leaving his feet and then hitting a player almost blindsiding him. Not happy how the call was made. And it is something that we have talked to the league about for 5 games.
Yeah, so serious questions now whether Scheifele is going to be okay. We will learn more today, at least the Jets expect to, with the game, possible closeout game going back to Missouri tomorrow. But they were really after the referees last night, the Jets, and if you watch the game, you would understand why.
Is that why Arniel was irate? Was that what that was about, coming back after the period? It must have been. I know we were trying to confirm that, but he rarely looks that irate, right, on the sidelines? Yeah.
No, a comparatively composed coach, Scott Arniel, but that's why.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because they showed the other coach too, and he looked mad too, so I thought it was something else. But at any rate, he's not impressed. Through that clip, you can hear it.
You want a nice stat as we head into Friday's game, though?
I think I know it. Say it.
Teams with this lead, 3-2, go on to the next round 79% of the time. So as I touch wood, that's a positive.
I like it. Okay. You staying with hockey? I cut you off there, or you want to move to professional women's?
Quickly should mention Montreal, eliminated last night. They gave Alex Ovechkin and company everything they could handle. Youngest team in the playoffs, by the way, the Habs, and I thought they did exceptionally well. And we have Toronto and Edmonton both playing tonight with opportunities to get through to the next round, and I've just cited the statistical likelihood of that. So we'll see.
Let's move then to the women, the Professional Women's Hockey League, set for more growth.
Yeah, the league, Marcy says Seattle will be joining its ranks next season. The announcement comes a week after Vancouver was named as the PWHL's 7th team. League Vice President Jana Hefford explains what makes Seattle such an attractive locale.
It checked all the boxes, looking at market size and media reach, looking at facilities and infrastructure, the ability to play at Climate Pledge Arena alongside the Kraken. That strong partnership with the Kraken was something that was incredibly appealing to us. When we put all of those things together, we just can't wait to start building our team in this community.
Yeah, interesting, Marcy, to hear Hefford cite the cooperation of the Seattle Kraken. The PWHL has largely gone its own route thus far, with little collaboration with NHL teams playing in their markets. Having 2 West Coast clubs, though, does make sense from an economic standpoint. It means the existing clubs, who are all at least a couple of time zones away, will be able to maximize those Pacific road trips.
And let's go to soccer, where a West Coast club made history last night.
Vancouver Whitecaps beat Lionel Messi and Inter Miami and have thus become the 3rd Canadian team ever to make it through to the CONCACAF Cup Championship, which means you're going to be the best team in North America and Central America and the Caribbean by the time you're done, and maybe get to the Club World Cup and play the likes of Real Madrid. Great job by the Vancouver Whitecaps last night.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott.
You betcha.
Scott Reguer with Morning Sports. Still ahead after your CBC Winnipeg News at 7:30. We're going to hear more about Cirque Molière. It turned 100 last week, and we're going to hear about a podcast that was created about the first woman to lead the Franco-Manitoban Theatre in St. Boniface. Right now, it's your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 4 degrees. Mix of sun and clouds today. Still a little on the cool side as we begin the month of May. A high today of 14. Newly elected Manitoba PC leader Abhi Khan says he knows his party has to regain the trust of Winnipeg voters. The PCs were reduced to 3 seats in the last provincial election and now are down to 2 after losing the Tuxedo by-election.
We have some work to do as a party to rebuild that trust. We got to rebuild that relationship. I know there's only 2 city MLAs right now with us, but we have a very strong caucus that I believe will put that work in.
In the PC leadership race, Khan received more support in Winnipeg than his rival, Wally Dowdridge. You can hear more on this story coming up in this half hour right here on Information Radio. You can also read our analysis of the breakdown on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Winnipeg Jets fans say they won't let the deadly car attack at a Vancouver street festival last weekend keep them away from whiteout street parties. Among the 5,000 fans at last night's whiteout, AJ Bartel was thinking of the victims at Lapu Lapu Day in Vancouver.
I got 4 children, and I don't know what I would do if one of my kids were hurt, but really praying for them, and hopefully that never happens here in Winnipeg. So, yeah, I feel safe here. We have good police officers, and the barricades here, it's really safe.
True North says the Vancouver tragedy triggered a review of Winnipeg playoff street parties. Adjustments were made to where large vehicles and obstructions were placed, blocking all road and sidewalk access to the site. A man has pleaded guilty to killing 3 people in just over 6 months in Winnipeg's inner city. Maxim Dale Garneau was charged with the deaths of 3 men between September 2023 and March 2024. The first killing happened after Garneau got into an argument with a man in a house on Spence Street. The second stemmed from a dispute over a woman on Manitoba Avenue. And the third involved a man on Selkirk Avenue suspected of informing on his accomplices in a robbery. Firearms were used in all 3 killings. Garneau's sentencing on 3 counts of second-degree murder is scheduled for next month. Prime Minister Mark Carney has spoken on the phone with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and among the issues discussed was Zelensky's request for further sanctions on Russian banking and energy sectors. But it is Ukraine's relationship with the United States making news today.
Both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent speaking last night after Washington and Kyiv signed a rare minerals deal. We are still waiting for details to be made public, but U.S. President Donald Trump has said that agreement has the potential to offer the U.S. more than what it has spent to date supporting the Ukrainian war effort. The Supreme Court decides today whether it will hear a youth-led climate change case. It is being brought by Sophia Mather, an 18-year-old climate activist, and 7 other young people. They're challenging Ontario's reduced emissions targets, saying the lower climate goals jeopardize their human rights. It would be the first time the Supreme Court considers whether a government climate plan violates the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Legal analysts say the case has the potential to alter how governments are held to account on climate change issues. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Indigenous craftspeople from across Manitoba are showcasing their skills at Assiniboia Downs. And CBC's Rosanna Hempel tells us now one man hopes it will revive traditions.
This is a moose nose that I'm burning off the hair first.
Ovid McLeod makes a delicacy over a fire. He's a fisher and trapper from the northern community of Cross Lake. Here in Winnipeg, for an event, McLeod learned about hunting and skinning from his dad and uncles.
It's very important because it's getting kind of lost, and we need to bring it back because the younger generation today don't really have an idea how it used to be back then.
McLeod hopes to brush up on preparing hides, learning and teaching, so his family's traditions can be savored too. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Getting back to playing Jets hockey. Kyle Connor in the first period on Sportsnet as the Winnipeg Jets win Game 5 of their first-round playoff series against St. Louis. The Jets beating the Blues 5-3. Mark Scheifele left the game after taking a number of big hits in the first period. It's not known if he'll play in Game 6 tomorrow night. Jets coach Scott Arniel says his team's play was outstanding.
Everybody stepped up. And then, obviously find out that Scheif wasn't coming back. But even prior to that, I thought we had a great first, and we were physical. We were battling, competing, doing all the things we had to do, to get ourselves going. And just real proud of the way the guys stuck together and just played our game.
Game 6 is 7 tomorrow night in St. Louis. Meanwhile, the Montreal Canadiens were eliminated from the playoffs by the Washington Capitals. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into this weather forecast for today. It's looking like it's going to be pretty nice, Abby.
Yeah, pretty nice. The sun already making its appearance in most of the regions down south, and even in Churchill, it's pretty sunny up there at this time, but it's really cold up. In the Red River Valley region, we're looking at temperatures around 4 degrees here in Winnipeg. We will see a mix of sun and clouds today. It's going to really stay mostly partly cloudy, but you still enjoy some sunny conditions. The breezy conditions will also come from the northeast. It's going to get mild at some point. We warm up to 14, and for folks in the city, no rain is expected today. Just some cloudy conditions overnight. We drop to around 1 overnight. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region from Modern Winkler all the way down to the U.S. border. We're going to be seeing partly cloudy conditions, and high will be around 16 degrees. Expect a mix of sun and clouds also. In the western part of the province, Brandon sitting at 0 under mainly sunny conditions at this time. Sunshine will hold through this morning, but expect some clouds during your lunch break with a chance of showers or even thunderstorms. You'll be hearing that in some areas late afternoon. The winds will be coming from the northeast. It's going to transition to mild breezy conditions as well. Highs will be around 15. In the Parkland region, -1 in Dauphin. Though it's sunny there, it's going to be a sunny morning. Expect some clouds to move in with a chance of showers starting around the noon period. The winds will be shifting from the east to the north, staying breezy at times, highs around 11 degrees. In Gimli, good morning to you there. It is 3 degrees at this time, clear. Also, the sun trying to make its appearance for the Interlake region today. Once this dance between the sun and the cloud happens, it's going to be more like cloudy conditions taking over. There's a chance of rain later for you in that part of the province. Your high would reach 10 degrees. Heading into the northern regions now, the powerful influence surrounding areas, we're looking at -3, -4 in some areas. Some snow earlier, but now it's cloudy. The snow in the rest of that region will be leaving you this morning, giving away to some clear conditions later in the day. Breezy from the north, and you reach high around 5 degrees. Now we track conditions into Thompson, where we are still stuck around -8, -9 for that region. Mostly cloudy conditions. We do have flurries expected to taper off as you get into the morning. Expect some clear skies, high around 3 degrees. Further north in Churchill, it is still frigid there. -20 at this point. Though it's sunny, that sunny condition will not be warming things up. Just expect the sunshine to more like give you that positivity through the day. You'll see high around that -6. So in summary, Marcy, down south, it's more like starting dry, mild, under partly cloudy conditions, and the sun peeking through. While up north, we're seeing, a bit of snow here and there that should be tapering off, and Churchill is frigid.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, the commute this morning. What should people watch for?
Quiet commute, but one thing you should maybe watch for, starting around 10 o'clock today, there's going to be 900 people downtown cleaning up. We it's around just after 6, we had Downtown Biz on to talk about the cleanup effort. 900 people have registered this year, so
I know. It's
amazing.
crazy.
So there might be a lot of people out and about. So just keep your eyes peeled. There might be some folks, picking up garbage. So pretty cool, and you can still apparently join the effort as well. So, but if you do see something else going on out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
It's good they got a good day for it too.
Yeah,
It's not
beautiful.
raining on them and cold.
For sure.
All right, next on the show, Canada's oldest permanent theatre company just celebrated its 100th anniversary. I'm talking about French language theatre Cirque Molière over in St. Boniface. To mark the anniversary, a podcast called Pauline Boutal in 5 Acts is now out. Now, it looks back at the extraordinary life of the first woman to lead Cirque Molière. The podcast host, director, and co-director is Catherine Moreau. She's a journalist for Radio-Canada here in Winnipeg, and I spoke with her all about it earlier this week.
Thanks for having me, Marcy.
So tell us a little about your podcast. Who was Pauline Boutal and what are the 5 acts?
So Pauline Boutal was born in 1894 in Brittany in France. She was born Pauline Le Goff, that was her maiden name, and she passed away in 1992 in St. Boniface at the age of 97. So some people might know her for her role at Cirque Molière as the director. The auditorium at CCFM is actually named after her. But so her name is sort of out there, known. Some of her paintings are at the Ledge. Some of her paintings are also at the WAG, but they're not always out. But she had a super long life, 97 years, and it was full from end to end. So the reason why we called it 5 acts is obviously a little reference to theater, but also it sort of made it logical to tell it that way. And each act has a name that was given to Pauline over her life. So the first act is called La Grande Dame du Cercle Molière, so the Great Lady of Cirque Molière. And that's really about her as the director of the theater company. And she was the director from 1941 till 1967.
It's a long time.
It's a huge time. It's huge. And it was early, as you're not learning anything here, but this was normally men that were at the helm of theater companies. And then the second act goes back in time. We go back to her childhood in Brittany and her family's immigration to Manitoba in 1907. She was 13. The third act is their life in St. Boniface and how she's sort of not wild, but she would be considered wild by people in St. Boniface because she was going out to the theater, playing in plays, and working in a newspaper with all men.
How dare this woman?
Right. There were also anonymous letters written about her in La Liberté.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's a fascinating character, and she even crosses the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, during the First World War to go marry the man of her, the man she loves.
The trailblazer.
Yeah, and then comes back and accomplishes her dream of becoming an illustrator. And she becomes an illustrator at what was Brigden's back then. It was a commercial art company, and they would illustrate all of Eaton's catalogs for the west of Canada. And she became a top artist quite quickly. Fourth act is her and her husband when they joined the Cirque Molière a year after its creation. And the fifth act, it's after her husband dies. She decides to follow her passion for visual arts. She goes away to France, studies painting at the age of after 50. 1947. She goes there for a few months, and she comes back, and she's a super famous and accomplished painter and portraitist in Winnipeg.
What a life to learn about and all of these connections. Now, Pauline Boutal obviously was a pillar, as you've explained, to the Francophonie and theatre in Manitoba. But I understand that her impact actually extends even beyond Manitoba's borders. How so?
Well, first of all, we could look at her impact through the way she mentored a lot of people. One of them is the well-known author, Gabrielle Roy. So Gabrielle Roy joined the Cirque Molière as a young woman, and Pauline and her husband, Arthur, really inspired her to follow her passion, go study theater and writing in Europe. And she also trained a lot of actors that also became afterwards Radio-Canada announcers. Actually, the first television voice of Canada, Henri Bergeron, who's actually from Manitoba. There's actually a school called after him here. He trained under Pauline Boutal as an actor, and he said that his work as an actor really helped him to learn this new job that had never been done before. The other way she did affect her impact was felt beyond Manitoba's borders is that she would bring her troupe to do tours around Western Canada, and she would play, French plays for French communities that didn't have theaters back then. So she would take them in the 50s to Regina, Gravelbourg, Calgary, and all the way to New Westminster in BC. And the other thing she did is she inspired a lot of visual artists because she gave courses at École Marion, but also one of the people she did mentor was her niece, who we'll hear now, Margot Hubicki, who also became an artist and became a children's book illustrator. And she's recounting when Pauline would go and visit her family in Detroit.
There were times when she would show me how if you draw the face like this, she, I think, taught me to look at it. Now, here's a picture of the horse. Is this head round? No. It might not have been so great, but when she would come to visit, it was so funny. I had a nice bicycle, and Pauline was visiting on a nice summertime, and she stepped onto it and began to ride around in the backyard.
So she had a fun side?
That was the nice thing about talking to Margot and to people that did know her a bit closely, because I think she was so busy that she was seen as very strict. And we have stories in that show that are very like, whoa, she seems like...
no nonsense.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly. But no, it was nice to see her in that...
other side.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to the interviews you conducted for the project in the archives, Catherine, I know that you had access to previously unreleased recordings, which is always so cool. What did you uncover?
So the reason I sort of... took account of how important she was thanks to Louise Duguay's biography, which is called Pauline Boutal, An Artist's Destiny. And I wanted to interview her because she was leaving the country. And she said, but in the meantime, you could listen to some of the tapes I did for my book. So I had access to cassettes that were from the 1990s, which to me sound like yesterday, but they were people that had known Pauline Boutal and that are no longer amongst us. Precious recordings, and the WAG has artwork of hers. And when I got here, I went to see the WAG, and none of her work was out. And then the day before the podcast was released, the WAG published the photo of this artwork on their Instagram.
That's what they chose of all the photos. Pauline Boutal.
Yeah. So we can hear the curator of this exhibition, which is called the Backyard Floridium, who describes the artwork and talks a bit about Pauline Boutal.
And her name is Nicole Fletcher?
Yes.
A lot of them are artist views, what I would kind of call floral portraits. So artists taking a look at what was around them in their gardens, in their neighborhoods. And it's a plain yellow background. So yeah, when I was thinking about the show and putting together the list, this one was one that was in my highlights that I wanted in here.
Now, before you leave the studio this morning, Catherine, this project was also personal to you. So tell us why.
Well, I'll let people listen to the podcast because there is a little maybe complicated, tenuous family relation there that's also sort of a coincidence. But I think it was very personal to me because Pauline Boutal is a woman that never had any children. And I was really inspired in learning about her story and learning how this woman made like very different choices at her time and had a huge impact. Because often, people, when you don't have kids, people wonder like, who's going to take care of you and what are you going to leave behind, etc. And she is just proof of how women like her that have no children, and the personal part is I don't have any children either. So it was very inspiring to sort of see like this auntie character and how she touched so many people.
Congratulations on your podcast, and really appreciate having you in studio.
Thank you, Marcy.
That is Catherine Moreau, journalist for Radio-Canada in Manitoba. Her podcast, Pauline Boutal in 5 Acts, is available on Radio-Canada's website and audio platform. That is the French Listen app. I do want to mention, though, that tonight, in collaboration with Cirque Molière, Radio-Canada is organizing an event to mark the launch of the podcast and Cirque's 100 years. So this event on the podcast starts at 5:30 if you want to go. It's at the theatre. It includes a panel discussion about Pauline Boutal's legacy. Catherine will be part of that. It is free, but they're asking that you reserve your spot on Le Point des Vins ticket sellers website.
breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
Partly sunny, 4 degrees in Winnipeg. You're with CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Well, it's been 5 days since the Manitoba Progressive Conservatives chose their new leader provincially. Fort White MLA Abby Khan was selected as the party's new leader, narrowly beating Wally Dowdrich. The PC leadership race was triggered by the resignation of former Manitoba Premier Heather Stephenson. She stepped down as party leader in early 2024. Now, the results were calculated under a new weighted ballot system. The data shows Khan was more popular in Winnipeg and in Brandon, and his competitor Wally Dowdrich was the popular candidate in non-urban constituencies. The question is, will Khan be able to expand the existing PC vote in Winnipeg and Brandon? The CBC's Bartley Kivas is here to walk through how he unites the party after all this. Good morning.
Good morning. I am not going to unite the party, okay?
Fair enough. Mean what you say, right? What was different about the way that the PCs chose their leader this time versus Heather Stephenson in 2021?
Well, in 2021, there was a very, very short leadership race. Brian Pallister, the former premier, resigned, and the party set up a race with very, very short timelines. Not a lot of people had the opportunity to get in there, and Heather Stephenson, who was a cabinet minister, or had been a cabinet minister, assembled a very large group of caucus members around her. And in the end, it was Shelley Glover, a former Conservative MP, who stepped in and said, she was running as another person, as another candidate on principle. And the entire race took place in a matter of less than 3 months. And this one. Well, sorry, forgive me. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, expand, please, because we said the system changed, right?
Yeah, well, the system changed. Sorry, this race was conducted over a very long period of time, and it took place. The candidates had 6 months to sign up and 6 months to campaign, and the way the vote was tallied was different. Instead of it simply being one member, one vote, there was a weighted system that would award points to candidates based on the number of votes in their individual constituencies. So if theoretically there were hundreds and hundreds of votes in one constituency, they simply divide up the vote on a percentage basis and award a certain number of points. In the end, you didn't get these huge numbers in that they thought could have happened, but the entire system was set up so that nobody could just stack the vote with tons of new party members in one particular place. So you couldn't get, let's say, everyone in a single town, let's pick one randomly, Grunthal, coming out and voting for one candidate, and all of a sudden you've got like the Grunthal party leader.
Got it.
Sorry to the people of Grunthal, I just chose you randomly.
So why did they move to that system after the 2021 leadership contest?
Well, due to the protracted nature of that contest and the fact that they didn't get all the ballots out in time, there was if you recall, Shelley Glover launched a legal challenge of her race. She lost to Heather Stephenson by 363 votes. And the court determined that there was no deliberate attempt here to rig up the ballot, but there were many, many inaccuracies. So the party had a study. It was commissioned by a Glover supporter. It was run by a Glover supporter and a Stephenson supporter. And they came out with these new rules and these new ways to run a party leadership race in a much less contentious manner.
So we know now Abby Khan won the riding with 50.4% of the available points. It's the point system we're talking about.
Yeah.
What does that look like on a riding by riding basis then? Can you expand on what I said in the intro there?
Yeah. So what happened was Abby Khan won most of the constituency associations, one for each of the constituencies inside Winnipeg. He won most of them. He won 25 of 30. He won 32. He got most of the ones in Winnipeg, and Wally Dowdrich got most of the ones outside Winnipeg, and they
and he got most of the ones in Brandon
too.
All
of them in Brandon.
Abby?
Yes, Abby got both of them in Brandon.
He took the cities.
He took the cities, and he was campaigning saying, "Look, I'm going to be the person who's going to be able to win because I'll be able to increase the party's vote in Winnipeg." The party got reduced to 3 seats in the 2023 provincial election in Winnipeg, and then they lost another one in the Tuxedo by-election. And you can't really, there's 32 out of 57 constituencies are in Winnipeg. So if you don't have any representation here, the sort of utility of electing Abi Khan for the Wally Dowdridge for the party would have been minimal if he's already popular in places where the PCs already have strong support.
Now, if this were a race decided by votes, the old system, not points, who would have won?
It would have been Wally Dowdridge by 53 votes. In terms of raw votes, Dowdridge got more votes.
Still close though, right? Close
very
on
close,
points,
very
close
very
in
close.
The old system, if you
yeah,
use it.
so like not an overwhelming, but if the party is to get not say which candidate, not to talk about which candidate is better, which candidate had a better platform, but to talk about which candidate is actually poised to actually make gains for the party on an electoral basis or theoretically, this would strongly suggest that Khan, not Dowdridge, would have would give the party more runway.
You spoke to Abi Khan. You asked how he's going to win over more PC voters in places where he wasn't strong. Let's have a listen to that.
I think that starts with rebuilding our trust and relationships with Winnipeggers, right? Manitobans as a whole, but your question is specific to Winnipeg. Now, I realize that's a vague answer, so to dive down into the details, that means actually getting out and meeting them, listening to them, and presenting them with a plan that is going to address their concerns and actually show them real results when we get back in government, right? So when it comes to affordability, when it comes to crime, when it comes to healthcare, but that all starts, first of all, so we have some work to do as a party to rebuild that trust. We got to rebuild that relationship. I know there's only 2 city MLAs right now with us, but we have a very strong caucus that I believe will put that work in.
What are the relationships he's talking about when he says gone wrong?
Well, he's speaking in very general terms. I think we know where they've gone wrong. I mean, that 2023 provincial election campaign alienated Winnipeg voters, and we saw that in the result that reduced them to 3 seats. And of course, you and I have spoken a lot before about the landfill ads. Not just the decision not to search the landfill, but the decision to campaign on that. And the party has a lot to do to come back from that. Now, the interim party leader, Wayne Owasco, apologized completely, not just for the landfill ads, but for the decision not to search the landfill. Now, during the PC leadership race, Abi Khan did not fully support that apology. He did suggest that the communication, the ads were not sufficiently empathetic, but said that the decision not to search the landfill was the right decision at the time, given what the Stephenson government knew. So he's got some work to do with Winnipeg voters. There was also his role as the face in the 2023 election campaign, as the face of the parental rights campaign, would never fully explain what that meant. Now, Abi Khan had often been asked, why he... Go ahead. You were going to jump in.
I'm interjecting because he was on our program just like 2 days ago, and he spoke to that. And so he actually said he wants to reopen looking at the Manitoba, the Education Act. So he's still sort of talking about having concerns there. And then on the issue of the landfill, he slightly softened from what he said when he said he wouldn't say this was a mistake. And he moved towards saying that he would support a search on the air. So I just want to make that clear.
Sure. But in terms of, I'm going to tell you, I asked him in my long form interview in March 7th, I said, Abi, do you not realize that many people see the term, you always frame parental rights as allowing parents to know when their kids are being bullied at school. I said, do you not realize that term is seen as a transphobic dog whistle by a lot of people? And I used that precise term. And he said, yeah, I actually found that out after the campaign. So the first time he did say on March 7th that he is aware that was a transphobic dog whistle. But he had, during the campaign, I asked him several times, kind of pleaded that he did not know.
We got to go to headlines, Bartley. Thank you for all the clarity here. And people can read your piece online. Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Bartley Kivas, reporter with CBC Manitoba. And you can go to cbc.ca/Manitoba, as I mentioned, to read more. Heather.
Winnipeg Jets fans say they won't let the deadly car attack at last weekend's Vancouver Street Festival keep them away from whiteout parties. Among the 5,000 fans at last night's whiteout, AJ Bartel says he's thinking of the victims at Lapu Lapu Day in Vancouver, says he's praying for them, but he feels safe in Winnipeg. We'll hear what True North has done. That's coming up at 8:30.
Still ahead, remembering Councillor Jason Shrier, who died suddenly this week.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Do you find it hard to get motivated, to get things done? Do you wish you could be a little more creative? The lead singer of the great Canadian band Arkells, Max Kerman, has a new book out. It's called Try Hard, all about how he approaches his work. And he thinks it might help you out.
I think to be consumed by something that you love is such a gift.
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
You, the Current listeners, have been voting in droves for our Ultimate Canadian Travel Top 10 list. Today, the big reveal. Rick Mercer is back with us to talk about your choices for the best places to travel to across Canada. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. It is a case that could make history, and it is leading 7 young Canadians to the Supreme Court of Canada. The court will hear their arguments aimed at fighting climate change and the responsibility governments have to future generations. My World Report co-host John Northcott is here in studio with more. So, John, tell us how we got here.
Marcia, we all know about the effects of climate change. Higher temperatures, floods, fires, poor air quality. These young people, with Sophia Mather, who's just turned 18, lending her name to this case, arguing that the actions of the Ontario government effectively violate their charter rights because of the effects that climate change will have on their health. In other words, as the next generation, they look at the effects climate change will have on their lives and argue not only is it unhealthy, but discriminatory. Not to get too far into the legal weeds on this one, but the teens argue that under the Charter Sections 7 and 15, the Doug Ford government's Cap and Trade Cancellation Act of 2019 violates their right to life, liberty, and security of person, as well as discrimination based on age. This case has ping-ponged back and forth in Ontario's lower courts, with the Ford government choosing to take the case to the Supreme Court for a ruling. If the court even agrees to hear the case, it will be a big deal. It would be the first case in Canada to rule on whether a government is obligated to meet higher emissions targets.
So, John, tell us more about these young people.
Marcia, the case bears the name of Sophia Mather. Despite her young age, she's been involved in the climate fight for years now, taking her fight to Ottawa and Capitol Hill and Washington, D.C., along with international climate activist Greta Thunberg. Here is Mather.
I believe that youth deserve a say in issues like climate change, social justice, or things that affect us on the daily. I also believe that youth deserve a say in our government's policies and what they do with our future.
We've just come through an election where the issue of climate change was notably largely absent. If the court decides today to deal with this case, it might force governments to put their responsibilities for the climate's future back on the agenda.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Marcia.
My World Report co-host John Northcott. And to clarify, we will learn later this hour whether the Supreme Court of Canada will hear arguments in this case. Prime Minister Mark Carney has spoken on the phone with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. They discussed ways to get closer to a ceasefire in Ukraine. Zelensky says that includes applying more sanctions to Russia's banking and energy sectors, but it is Ukraine's relationship with the United States that is under the microscope today.
Both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says both countries signed a rare minerals deal last night, but we are still waiting for all the details to be made public. U.S. President Donald Trump has long said support for Ukraine against the Russian invasion is draining U.S. resources, but he told a town hall yesterday this minerals deal could give the U.S. a lot more than it has already spent. Trump also says he wants to secure a lasting peace agreement to stop the deaths in this war. There was another wave of strikes overnight. Drones targeted the Black Sea port city of Odessa as well as Kharkiv. Ukraine's Air Force says Russia launched more than 170 drones and 5 ballistic missiles overnight. And Ukrainian drones also targeted Russian-occupied parts of Kherson. Russian officials say at least 7 people were killed. From tariffs to deportations, former U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris did not hold back attacking her former campaign rival, now President Donald Trump. She delivered a bold speech in San Francisco last night, coinciding with Trump's first 100 days in office. Steve Futterman has more.
Kamala Harris accused the Trump administration of trying to scare the American people.
We all know President Trump and his administration are counting on the notion that fear can be contagious.
She called it part of a well-conceived agenda.
An agenda to shrink government and then privatize its services, all while giving tax breaks to the wealthiest among us.
In one of her sharpest attacks, Harris said Trump is abandoning American ideals.
It is not okay to detain and disappear American citizens or anyone without due process.
She called the Trump tariffs the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern American history and said it could lead to a recession.
The president's reckless tariffs hurt workers and families, devastate the retirement accounts that people spent a lifetime paying into, and paralyze American businesses.
The immediate future, she said, is uncertain.
Straight talk, things are probably going to get worse before they get better.
Harris said the country may very well be on the verge of entering a constitutional crisis, with Trump gaining more and more control over powers traditionally given to the U.S. Congress and the courts. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
The Conservative Party of Canada and its longtime supporters are breaking down what happened in this election. The party hit a generational high in its share of the popular vote. And sources tell CBC News Pierre Poilievre still has a lot of support as party leader, even though the Liberals will form the next government. As Nicole Williams reports, some Conservative voters are questioning the direction of their party.
His antagonism just bothered me. I said, I can't vote for him.
For nearly every single election over the last 70 years, 92-year-old Carol Howes has voted Conservative. That is, until now.
I may not be around in 4 years' time to make any decisions like that. But if he remains head of the party, I don't think I could ever vote for him. I just don't like his style of politics.
She's part of a group that has been faithful to the party but are now feeling alienated from it, suggesting leader Pierre Poilievre's tactics and rhetoric became too negative or too right-wing to support. Even people like Jordan Priddle, who still voted Conservative this election, understands why some people feel they no longer can.
They might have been too hard to step on the gas too early.
There are many, many shades of blue.
It also marks a growing divide between Conservatives at the federal and provincial levels. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, a progressive Conservative, suggests the party reflect on what will unite their voter base.
I hope they do some soul searching on, what they believe it means to be a Conservative.
Lori Turnbull is a professor at Dalhousie University in Halifax. She says politically centered voters that used to find a home with the Conservatives might feel forced to vote Liberal, but aren't necessarily happy about it.
That crowd might have a hard time feeling comfortable voting Liberal given everything.
Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Emergency room visits for mental health in Canadian children and youth has gone down by 30%. A new report released today suggests young people are still reaching out for help. But as Alison Northcott tells us, they're going to different places.
It speaks to certainly what I've experienced as a clinician.
Child and youth psychiatrist Dr. Rachel Mitchell at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre in Toronto says she's seen fewer young people turning to emergency rooms for mental health treatment.
The weight of mental health needs amongst children and youth and families is really being held in the community.
New data from the Canadian Institute for Health Information, or CIHI, shows a 30% decrease in the rate of ER visits for mental health disorders by children and youth between 2018 and 2023. But in that same period, more young people in several provinces went to their physician about their mental health, and more were prescribed medications for mood and anxiety. Cheryl Chewy is Director of Health System Analytics at CIHI.
These data points suggest that
We're seeing a bit of a shift in where children and youth are getting care for their mental health and shifting away from hospitals and towards community settings.
Chewy says it doesn't mean young people's mental health has improved, but Dr. Tracy Vaillancourt, the Canada Research Chair in School-Based Mental Health and Violence Prevention at the University of Ottawa, says it may show better awareness.
The good news potentially is that they're coming to their family doctor earlier, and it's being treated before it becomes this full-blown crisis.
Still, Vaillancourt points out the data doesn't capture those she says suffer in silence without treatment from a hospital or a physician. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. For news anytime, cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, welcome to the merry month of May, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us. The forecast got the memo. We're going to have a pretty nice day today with a high of 18 degrees. Abby will have more in a moment. Here on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. Well, this half hour on the program, we're going to share some of your comments. May 1st is also the day of the International Day of the Worker, rather. So we asked you this morning, what is one thing that could improve your work life? Is it better pay? Is it shorter hours? Is it flexibility? We'll get to some of your comments. You can also still weigh in at 788-3205. But first, remembering Councillor Jason Shrier. City staff and councillor mourning the loss of the city councillor who passed away suddenly earlier this week. Pardon me, I shouldn't say suddenly, but the news came as a shock. He was only 57 years old. We don't know the cause of death yet. But Councillor Ross Eady is going to talk about his friend and how he wants people to remember him. They were very close, so stay tuned. We'll have that moment, and we're going to hear more about how City Council came together. In fact, you might have heard in the news that, just came together behind closed doors apparently and shared thoughts, memories, and tears. So stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She is here with our news headlines. 8:11 is the time.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba PC leader Abhi Khan says he knows his party has work to do to regain support in Winnipeg. Khan was elected PC leader on Saturday. His party only has 2 seats in Winnipeg. And this city is home to more than half of Manitoba's constituencies. A man is pleaded guilty to killing 3 people in just over 6 months in Winnipeg's inner city. Maxim Dale Garneau was charged in the deaths of 3 men between September 2023 and March 2024. His sentencing on 3 counts of second-degree murder is scheduled for next month. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into Abby Adiemi's forecast here. What's up?
Across the province, we are seeing a mix of sunshine and cloudy conditions from the south all the way up north. We do have that slim chance of showers in the western part of the province. Right now, Winnipeg, 4 degrees. The sun is shining outside. Through the day, expect a mix of sun and clouds. It gets a bit breezy from the northeast later. This afternoon should be mild. We warm up to 14 degrees. Tonight, the skies will stay partly cloudy. The winds will be calm, and we drop to around 1 later into the overnight period. Down south in the Pembina Valley region, the Red River Valley region, the Interlake region, it's more like a cool morning with temperatures between 3 degrees and 6 degrees. We're looking at some sunshine mixed with cloudy conditions today, along with some cool breeze, and we'll see highs between 10 and 16. And then you track it up north Flin Flon, the Part, Thompson, Churchill, Calderstadt, the snow tapering off, and we're seeing highs between 3 and 5 degrees for the northern region.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
But once again in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 4. And Corey Funk, how's the commute?
Very quiet commute overall. I reminded people last half hour as well that though if you are downtown, there's going to be 900 people roughly who have registered to clean up downtown today. So if it looks a little extra squeaky clean this afternoon, that's why. So just look out for folks. Maybe give them a wave, a little thank you if you're in the area and you see people cleaning up garbage, because there's going to be a lot of folks downtown doing that.
Yeah, it's
today.
the Biz official spring in cleanup. I think they said, 415 bags of garbage last year.
Yeah, wild. And last year it was 700 people, so there's going to be even more hands, so pretty cool. If you do see something else going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Got some comments here. I alluded that I would be sharing these. So these came in on Facebook. You can call as well. On this May 1st, the International Day for the Worker, we asked you what's one thing that could improve your life at work. Joanna Plater wrote in, as someone who used to work at Manitoba's Department of Labor for many years, workers in this province should have access to 10 days paid sick leave a year. The Employment Standards Code needs to be updated to add it's usually the most vulnerable and usually non-unionized workers that deserve that protected right. Becky Lett writing in, make buildings easier to be at with nicer furniture and cafeterias, etc. So things in the workplace that could improve life. You can call us on this, 788-3205. Well, Winnipeg City Council is mourning the loss of one of their own. Councillor Jason Shrier died earlier this week. He was just 57 years old. No cause of death has been publicly shared. Shrier was the city councillor for Elmwood EK for over a decade. At City Hall yesterday, Mayor Scott Gillingham spoke to reporters about the news.
Our council is shocked to hear of his death. Jason and I were elected at the same time in 2014. I've always appreciated working with him. He's a passionate advocate for people's affordability, to make sure people can afford to live in Winnipeg. And I know he was working on a project in his ward, in the Elmwood East Kildona ward, related to food security, and looking at a parking lot that's available to try to make that more than a market, a distribution for food. That was a project he was passionate about, so that people that couldn't afford groceries would have a place to access food. He would often talk, as those of you that follow council know, he would talk regularly about the impact of construction inflation on city costs. And it came to the point where we would joke with him, and we would just kind of almost time the meetings to see how many times Jason would talk about construction inflation. He is absolutely going to be deeply missed. We are going to be doing all we can to honor his legacy. I've committed the resources of my office. Other councillors have committed their resources as well to help his assistant, his executive assistant right now, to continue on the work of the office and the ward office. Appointments that Councillor Shrier was involved in, and committees he sat on, and vacancies this will create. Those will all be dealt with in the future here in the coming weeks.
Mayor Scott Gillingham speaking to reporters yesterday about the passing of Councillor Jason Shrier at 57 years old. The Winnipeg Free Press this morning spoke with Ed Shrier, and the Winnipeg Free Press is reporting that the family still doesn't know how his son died. Let's talk to Councillor Ross Eady. He represents the Mynarski ward. He and Councillor Shrier were close friends, and he joins us now on CBC. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcy. He was also, we called each other brother as well.
I'm so sorry for your loss. Tell me what he was like. Just as let's have a moment to remember how, through your eyes, how you'll be thinking about him and how you're remembering him.
Well, I'm remembering highlights. I've known him since the 1990s. Just to show you, he is an amazing man. He's always helping people. He believed he was born for a life of service to the people. He didn't necessarily want to run again for office, but Lillian Thomas mentioned it to him, and then he did in 2014. But I'll give you one example of how much he would help just people, friends, family. So we were moving out of a house, and I didn't have a truck for my office equipment. It had to be moved to Broadway, and I was standing in the driveway and just distraught. And there's Jason Shrier. He pulls up in a truck, no less. He was coming to my house for a different reason, and there he was, and he helped me move all my office stuff to my new office on Broadway. And I was just like, it was miraculous. And he showed up in my life quite a bit. He called himself my yodeler, and but he would help a lot of people. The mayor referred to food security. He had more than just the one initiative going with on the parking lot there. He was looking at supplying money so that the Chalmers Neighborhood Resource Network could purchase a storefront where they would have cheap food. So not for free, but you could go in there and find cheap food that's close to done. And he also had a distribution point that he wanted to do at Melrose Place, which is a community center, and he would distribute food there to the people who needed food. So that's the kind of thing. And you could talk to many people. Jason's always there to help, and always there to help his New Democrat colleagues, including me. He helped me out in my last election campaign.
I understand. I think he was even maybe at Leila Dance's headquarters. She lost in her riding on during the federal election on Monday, and I think he was at the the gathering there. How shocking!
Yeah, Junction 59. Actually, that's the last time I talked to.
Take a second here.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
This is maybe it's a silly question, but I mean, how shocked are you? And I mean, obviously, nobody knows quite what happened here, but where are you finding support given the shock? Is it maybe a better question? Where are all the counselors finding support?
Well, there's some counseling support that the mayor and the CAO had arranged for us. Counselors have buddied up. I'm buddied up with Councillor Sharma and Councillor Santos because we're both on Lord Selkirk Muscatone Community Committee. We're talking to each other, checking in on each other, and my girlfriend Amanda Ducharme, Jason was like her big brother, and he called him big brother, and her and I are talking and trying to get over this. Like I still don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I want to ask you, I mean, you were leaning into what he was like as a person and also as a counselor and some of the causes there. I understand that he disliked power politics. He was, known as a free spirit. What do you think that he would want to be remembered for?
What would he want to be remembered for? Well, he in his ward, he's going to want to be remembered for. And I'm going to try to help Mr. Hurley in that to make sure all those food security things happen.
You're going to follow through on some of those things.
I'm going to help Chris Hurley, who's kind of maintaining the office, and I'm working and been talking to Lalani. Can't remember her last name at the Chalmers Renewal Corporation there. But his legacy. He wouldn't. He would just, I think, want to be remembered for all the service and he was such a kind man and always upbeat, and he would want to be known for that. And he also. In the future, he'd like to see us get a handle on construction inflation. Mm-hmm. Many times we sat on the stoop stairs at my house talking about it too, not just at speeches. He wants the NDP need to remember him. He was always there helping out in campaigns, whether they looked like we were going to win or lose. He was always out there helping out.
Yeah, I know he leaves behind also a wife and two children. I want to ask you something before you go this morning that might leave us smiling, thinking about Councillor Jason Shrier. We played this clip of him singing karaoke earlier.
Yeah.
How much of a passion was that for him? You're describing him as a fun-loving guy. Like, did you get out singing a lot?
Yeah, we used to do the Counselor Brothers, and we would sing some Blues Brother, Soul Man, and then we'd go to karaoke all the time. It's like for us, it was stress relief, right? Like we would go karaoke at Boogie's, for example, after a council meeting.
What was his fave song? Like, what did he nail when he was out there?
Well, his go-to song was "Could You Be Loved."
He did a lot of Marley then, because I think our clip was a Bob Marley song too.
Yeah, well, that was his thing, but to watch and listen to Jason sing, he moves like he's dancing, and he was such a good dancer. So I'm kind of the same way too. I got to keep moving when I'm singing, right? And but he had some really cool moves. Like he's a trained dancer in Folklorama and all that. And he's going to be so missed for that too, because he would be at various pavilions.
Just last, Councillor Eadie, how do you plan to honor his memory in the coming days? Can you share anything about that you think the public should know as well?
Well, we were kind of talking. We want his name to be out there in the Elmwood East Kildonan ward. We don't have any ideas, but this might sound selfish to you, but Jason and I would talk for hours and hours on the stairs of my place, and he wanted me to write a book, an autobiography, and he even bought me a recorder to do it. I'm gonna have to finish it. I've been busy singing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's raw.
And I'm going to dedicate it to him because he kept pushing me. You got to do it, Ross. You got to do it. And there's no way we can go into his whole life, but we would talk about our past and the experiences that he had in life are amazing. Councillor
Eadie, thank you very much. Obviously, today, you're still coming to terms with this. Councillors are still coming to terms with this, but we really appreciate you taking a moment, because a lot of Winnipeggers, they might know their councillor, they know their councillor's name, they might know their work, of course, publicly, but it was really, I'm grateful for you to remember Jason Shrier in his professional and personal, public role, but also personally today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for letting me explain a little bit about nobody actually knows the city council. You see us in news on news clips and stuff like that, but nobody really gets to know who like Jason Shrier is, right? The underlying person. He was so kind and good.
Take care of yourself, Councillor Eadie. Thank you very much for remembering him.
All right, thank you.
City Councillor for the Marski Ward, reflecting on the death of his friend, Councillor Jason Shrier, who passed away earlier this week. And we thought, since Councillor Eadie mentioned this tune, we'd leave you with it this morning for a moment to absorb all of this. This is, of course, Bob Marley and Could You Be Loved? Bob Marley and Could You Be Loved. Playing it in memory of 57-year-old Jason Shrier, the counselor who died suddenly. Still no word on the cause of death. He certainly, it's one of his favorite tunes to do at karaoke, apparently. And he certainly was loved. City councillors now in the city of Winnipeg, as you just heard from Ross Seedy, have grief counselors for support. Still, as I mentioned, no understanding of specifically what happened. No cause of death has been shared publicly. It is partly sunny in Winnipeg. Let's talk about what's coming up on the Radio Noon call-in today. Marjorie Dalhouse has popped in. Hi.
Hi, Marcy. Well, today we're talking about security at outdoor events. The weather's warming up. Of course, thousands of people last night attending the Whiteout Street Party. We're going to talk to a security expert, and we're asking you to weigh in. Do you feel safe going to these outdoor events? What would you like to see in terms of security as we head into festival season? So weigh in, join the conversation, and give us a call after 12:30.
All right. Thanks, Marge.
Thank you, Marcy.
So join the live conversation or call now if you can't make a date at lunch, 788-3797 to leave a message for Radio Noon on security at public events. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. Mix of sun and clouds. It is 4 degrees. First day of May. A little cool. A high today of 14. Well, hockey fans say they aren't letting last weekend's deadly car attack at a Vancouver street festival keep them from Winnipeg whiteout parties. 5,000 Jets fans crammed into last night's street party outside Canada Life Centre. Fan Brandon Chung was happy Winnipeg fans felt safe.
This is an event to be celebrated, right? And, it's I think it shows a lot of strength that people aren't scared about that, right?
True North says the Lapu Day tragedy when an SUV was driven into a crowd killing 11 in Vancouver triggered a security review here. It says minor adjustments were made on where large vehicles and obstructions were placed, blocking all road and sidewalk access to the site. 900 volunteers are about to fan out and do a bit of a buff and shine on this city. Olivia Bilson at Downtown Winnipeg Biz says they were shocked last year when more than 700 people came out for the event, double the usual number. But Bilson says they're thrilled with the number who registered to help this year.
We have a lot more people working downtown, a lot more people living downtown, and a lot of people just want to participate. They want to give back to the community. They want to showcase their pride in our downtown, and it really shows that they care. So we're really excited to welcome well over 900 folks to join us today in our efforts.
Bilson says they will cover an area from Chinatown all the way to the Manitoba Legislature. The Biz will supply gloves, bags, and pickers. Bilson says last year they picked up more than 400 bags of garbage in downtown Winnipeg. Manitoba PC leader Abhi Khan says he knows his party has work to do to regain support in Winnipeg. Khan was elected leader on Saturday. His PCs have only 2 seats in Winnipeg. The city is home to more than half of Manitoba's constituencies. Khan says he knows his party alienated voters in the Manitoba capital.
I have a lot more to say on a lot of things that have happened in the past with this party. And, I would say stay tuned for those as we come, for sure.
In the PC leadership race, Khan received more support in Winnipeg than his rival, Wally Dowdrich. You can read our analysis of that breakdown on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. The latest figures are showing a significant drop in the number of emergency room visits by Canadian minors needing mental health care. Over a 5-year period starting in 2018, it is down by 30%. Cheryl Chewy is director at the Canadian Institute for Health Information.
These data points suggest that we're seeing a bit of a shift in where children and youth are getting care for their mental health and shifting away from hospitals and towards community settings.
She says in several provinces, more young people are talking to their doctors about their mental health, and more are being prescribed medications for mood and anxiety. It is the final day of an event celebrating traditional Indigenous foods and medicines. Craftspeople from First Nations around Manitoba and Saskatchewan have been gathering at Assiniboia Downs for the last few days. They're showcasing cooking, medicines, and moccasin making. It's hosted by Manitoba Keewatin Okimakanak, an organization from Northern First Nations. Garrison Settee is Grand Chief of MKO.
This is one of those things that we have been working on to ensure that we're doing our part to bring our people closer to their culture, and also to actually see people demonstrate how you do things and to learn. So it's intergenerational. We're passing it on to the younger generations.
And the people learning and teaching hope the event revives and preserves the traditions. Well, they are all revved up.
DeMello, quick shot!
Dylan DeMello, second period on Sportsnet as the Winnipeg Jets get back to their winning ways in front of a packed, a very loud whiteout. The Jets beat the Blues last night 5-3. It wasn't all celebrations, though. Mark Scheifele did not return after the first period after taking several big hits. Winnipeg leads that series 3-2 now, and Game 6 is Friday night at 7 in St. Louis. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's have one last look at what's happening on the morning commute. Corey?
Very quiet commute overall today. No major issues. But yeah, once again, shout out to the 900 people cleaning up downtown for the Downtown Biz Cleanup
It's
today.
May. How is it May?
I know, it's crazy.
Right? Like in a few weeks, May long. Like I got to get my head into summer mode. April just went because of the election. So
it always happens
so
like
fast.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not always with being busy with the election.
No, not the election, but yes, it always spring just kind of springs on us.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Good, though.
Good, very good.
Yeah, especially given what Abby's about to tell.
Talking about summer mood from this weekend, I think we're going to be seeing the 20s. So
right?
be prepared for that.
In southern Manitoba, we could be seeing 25 and 26 and 27.
27 next Monday. Yep.
That's legit.
But down south today, we're looking at, we're in for a mild afternoon. Highs will be getting close to 14 to 16 degrees in some regions down south. And then if you look at Brandon and Dauphin in the west, we're seeing things similar with the twist. There's going to be cloudy conditions and a slight chance of showers, and even a rumble of thunder will be felt. Up north, we're looking at cooler temperatures. We're just going to see highs hover around 3 and 5 degrees for the Par and Thompson, and Churchill stays frosty at -6.
All right. Yes, we have to be mindful. I should always say southern Manitoba when we're talking about the heat. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Take care, be well, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio. Big thanks to our team this morning. Our news department, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, and Megan Ketchison. Actually, don't think it's Joni out there today. It's probably Chris Armstrong or Alana Cole. It is Alana Cole. A big thanks to our live crew here in Studio 15. So that is Brad Lillies for YouTube, Abby Adeyemi, and Corey Funk. And thanks to the people that worked on our program today. So I'm just going to try to... I've totally frozen. My computer's totally frozen. So a big thanks to all the people that did work on the program today. I apologize I don't have names right in front of me, but please tune in again tomorrow for Information Radio once again right here on CBC. Have a great rest of your day. The Current's coming up next.